Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we're live, and I hope everybody can see me and see all the other participants to the final of the CPR International Mediation Competition of 2022. And I just wanted to start with saying that this competition was a great success over the last week. We've seen a lot of amazing performances by all of our teams, and whoever didn't make it to the final is still a winner, because we had so many decisions that were just a point or two ahead of the other team, and this was anybody's game. And from what I can tell you about what judges told me behind the scenes, I can only tell you that they were all very, very impressed by everybody's performance here, and especially the mediators. And I heard more than once the term that we will not have to worry about the future of the ADR society. The only thing that we have to worry about as judges is about our future competition. And a lot of our judges are more than happy to be retiring soon, because they're very scared of the competition that is up to them. With that, I wanted to congratulate our final participants, which are the Africa Nazarene University as the mediator. We have Skynet being represented by University of Sao Paulo, and we have Team Resistance represented by the Queen Mary University of London. Those will be our participants who will be mediating the finals today. And we will have a very interesting fact pattern behind that. Our participants were given an additional confidential information, and we will be discussing this fact pattern today. I lastly wanted to also thank our host for this session, Amanda Rodriguez. She is a volunteer with CPR from Sao Paulo, and she is a great host and has been wonderful during the whole week, doing so much work behind the scenes and helping us bring this competition to life. And finally, I wanted to thank all of our judges who are here. We have Alexandra Simosh, we have Jay Javert, we have Gary Bernberg, and we have Cheryl Gowski. All of them are excellent practitioners in their regions, and we're really excited for their feedback later on. With that, I'll leave it to the teams. I asked the judges to turn off their video and audio, and we can begin our session.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Cameron. You can all refer to me as Cameron or Jay in this mediation session. And I am grateful that you appointed me be your mediator in this final session of mediation that we're holding virtually. Otherwise, we'd be holding this mediation in the seat of mediation that is in Brazil. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here despite the COVID-19 pandemic, and I am grateful that you're all keeping safe. From your faces, I can tell that you're all safe, and I hope your families are staying safe. Before I begin, I would like to pass the opportunity to each and every one of you to make their introductory remarks. That is, tell us your name, tell us the company you're representing, tell us who you are in this session, and most importantly, tell us if you have the authority to enter into a mediation settlement agreement at the end of the session. The resistance will begin.
Good morning, everyone, and pleasure to see you again. I am Dr. Diana Ramos, and I am counsel for resistance for today.
Good morning, everyone. It is great to see you all today as well. My name is James Connor, and I'm the Vice President and CFO of Resistance. I can confirm I have full authority to settle today.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Patrick. I'm the CEO for Skynet. I can confirm that I have full authority, and I come here accompanied with my esteemed counsel, Camilla.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Camila G. Rev. I'm the internal counsel for Skynet. Everyone feel free to address me by my first name, Camila.
Thank you very much. Again, I would like to thank you for entrusting me to be your mediator during this last session. And I am actually grateful to point out that we've all come a long way since the first mediation session that we had. And this is the last day that we have. And I promise you, you've seen the fruits of mediation all along. You've taken advantage of mediation. You've seen the maximum benefits it can offer. And I can assure you that during this last session, with the skills that I have, I'm going to help you, I'm going to assist you, I'm going to facilitate this session until we come to the end. I understand that this is not your first mediation session. However, I will provide a quick refresher on what mediation is all about. First of all, mediation is voluntary. You've known that since the first day you started this mediation session. And clearly you know that you have all the rights to step out of this mediation anytime you want, with or without a reason. That means you're here out of your own volition. You have not been forced to be here, and you have the best interest of your companies and your businesses, and that's why you're being present today in this mediation session. Again, it is clear that everyone has stated that they have the authority to settle, and that means you don't have to call anyone. You don't have to contact or seek advice from any other person before you sign the mediation settlement agreement. It is also great to point out that I am aware you have put a stay to the arbitral and judicial proceedings and have decided to take full advantage of what mediation has to offer today on this table. Allow me at this point to point out the roles that I am going to play. I am here to facilitate this mediation session. I'm here to help you parties negotiate and come to a settlement agreement that is mutually amenable to both of you. I want to insist that I do not have the authority to impose any decision in you, and that means mediation is going to be party-centered. You've played this role all along. Your roles as parties is as clear as: be open-minded, lay the solutions on the table, participate and let us know what options you have, lay the ideas that you have on the table. And in that way, we're going to find a solution at the end of the day. I want you to look at me like a GPS. You have the map, you have the tools. All you have to do is to use me to help you reach your destination. The essential elements of mediation that are quite key are the elements of confidentiality. You've signed the the confidentiality agreement, and that means that you know that every information that you're going to talk about today remains confidential between each and every one of us. If anyone is called to witness in the court, including me, I do not have the rights nor the full authority to state anything that we've talked about today. The other element of mediation in this session today is the private caucuses. And that means that when we go to the private caucuses, I will talk to each and every one of you. And information that you provide me today remains confidential, not unless you grant me the permission to talk about them when we come back to the joint session. It is quite clear, and I have always stated that I am an impartial mediator. I am neutral. In as much as I have previously had contacts with each and every one of you, I am quite confident to state that I am not interested in having a win or lose mediation session today. All I am interested in, and the goal of this mediation, is to see that at the end of the day, we have a mutually amenable solution that both parties feel comfortable and satisfactory. At this point, let me point out clearly that anything that is going to bind us today after this session is the mediation settlement agreement that you will sign at the end. And that means until you're all ready to agree, nothing is agreed upon. This includes the ideas and the solutions that we will talk about. And at this point, I would like to ask if any of the parties has a question regarding their roles or my role or any of the elements before I let you do your opening statements.
Well, I do not. Do you have any questions, David?
No, thank you, Camila.
I don't have any questions. I'll turn it over to my client to see if they have any questions as well.
No, Dr. Ramos, no questions. Thank you, Jane.
Well, that's very great. Before we begin, before I let you do your opening statements, I have always practiced mediation and I have quite an expertise. And during my practice, I have known that for us to get to the mediation settlement agreement at the end, I have to quite point out clear that this is going to be a conflict mountain that you're going to climb and you're going to walk down together. In this case, I actually prepared a slideshow for you, and I am going to share it with you in the share screen. I want you to look at today's session in these 3 zones. So we're going to start at the red zone, move to the yellow zone, and at last at the green zone. At the red zone, we talk about what matters to you, what's at stake, your interest, what do you need from this mediation, what do you really want? And that is us moving from the conflict mountain up towards the breakthrough. While we're at the breakthrough, we have this conversation. We explore the ideas, the options, the solutions, the partners. We talk about what is the most likely to a negotiation agreement, which one is the worst to a negotiation agreement. Then when we have our ideas, we now climb down the mountain together. We walk down together, and that is us walking against the problem. That is where we talk about, so what do we do now with the ideas that we have? What do we do with the solutions and the options that we've laid on the table? And I can assure you, if you all trust in mediation, if we all begin together from the red zone, walk together towards the yellow, we will all move confidently down the conflict mountain. In this case, I would like to point out that the moment you learn to take advantage of mediation, it gives you so much benefits, and I can assure you that at the end of the day, the future is bright for your businesses. Allow me at this time to let resistance, that is according to the mediation protocol, to make their opening statements. Tell us why you're here, tell us your case, tell us your point of perspective, and tell us what you want before I let Skynet do this.
Thank you, Jay. And again, good morning, everyone. On behalf of my client and I, Resistance is very grateful to Skynet and the Mediator for what has been several productive sessions. Over the past 5 sessions, the parties have avoided getting bogged down with the legal issues and have rebuilt the trust that has been lost as a result of the issues arising out of the agreement. Resistance is pleased that such trust has been restored, and now the time has come to put pen to paper to finalize the issues between the parties. Resistance appreciates the progress that has been made, and finalizing a settlement of the issues today will ensure that these issues will not hamper either Resistance's or Skynet's future and prevent the parties from having to relive the issues of the past. As it's now clear from the past sessions, the interests of the parties are aligned, and it's important that such interests are clarified and future issues are avoided, as we realize that such issues can be both costly and potentially detrimental. As discussed in our past sessions, the technology transfer was not clearly laid out in the agreement, and it's now clear from our previous discussions how the lack of clarity can lead to a loss of trust and conflicts. That is why it is imperative today that we reach a final legal solution to spare both Resistance and Skynet from the mistakes of the past and learn from these mistakes in order to look into the future. As both Resistance and Skynet are aware, there have been several challenges where rumors and misunderstandings threaten to derail and impede progress and could have completely shattered any remaining trust between the parties. But Resistance is pleased that the parties have been able to move forward on addressing the key issues and are grateful to Skynet for its transparency and willingness to resolve the issues. Such willingness has allowed the parties to address issues head-on and was both vital to the parties' commercial and legal interests enshrined in the agreement. As Resistance has mentioned at every stage, time is of the essence, and we believe that both Resistance and Skynet can finalize the remaining issues today with a written settlement on the remaining issues with the future and commercial aims of both parties being achieved here today. As counsel for Resistance, you're aware that I'm here to provide clarity on the issues discussed today and to aid in finalizing a settlement on the issues discussed throughout the mediation sessions. There are only 2 items left to finalize that have been raised in the mediation, which includes the finalization of the technology transfer agreement and payment for the last shipment of the T-1000 MAX drones. As my client will confirm, Resistance is prepared and willing to finalize the technology transfer and the logistics regarding payment for the remaining shipment of the drones. And we hope that these remaining issues will be concluded today. And with those remarks, I turn it over to my client to clarify and further elaborate on our aims.
David, Camila, Jane, there is no secret, it has indeed been a long ride. And in all transparency, I came to the first mediation session with a high number of frustrations, with my trust being broken, and with the belief that 2 years ago, I partnered with the wrong company. But in the opposite, what has happened is that Skynet listened, and in particular you, David, you listened from the first mediation session that we had. And not only that, but you address our concerns every step of the way. You place yourself in our shoes, in particular in my shoes, and you understood the perspective we're coming from. You empathize with the type of political pressure we're facing in East Republic and with the disappointment of the East Republican citizens. So on behalf of my company, on behalf of the citizens, and obviously on behalf of myself, I would like to start our last mediation session by expressing my gratitude for your help, for your proactivity to promptly come with solutions, and most importantly, for your humanity in this situation. So with all these disagreements and misunderstandings that have been mostly resolved in the past 5 mediation sessions, I'm sure it is for you the same, David, that today indeed feels a bit different. I want today to be the start of a new chapter for both Skynet and resistance. I feel that we've reached the point when, for the benefit of both companies, we have to find ways today how to continue to operate successfully as independent entities. You know that resistance focuses primarily on the deployment of humanitarian aid. And you know already that my vision will stay the same for the upcoming years. But I also know that Skynet has a wider sphere of operations, namely designing aerial vehicles for both military and civilian operations, and even more than that, as you yourself expressed it to me in various conversations. You know, we entered into the tech transfer agreement because we have this common vision, right? We wanted to deploy humanitarian aid through technology and innovation. From my perspective, now we've accomplished that mission. Therefore, it is time for both parties to move forward independently. My vision, once again, will stay the same, and it is clear that I want to focus resistance on the deployment of humanitarian aid in the years to come. But I do not want anything from this moment on to restrict Skynet's vision. In particular, what I don't want after this last mediation session is for you, David, to limit yourself by partnering with your government in times of crisis and facing all these political, economic, and reputational risks that we have discussed in our past mediation sessions. So as my legal counsel stated, we saw that our small misunderstanding in the past could have actually proven detrimental to our relationship. We both want to avoid this in the future. Even a small rumor about which we discussed yesterday posed this tremendous risk. And what I certainly want to avoid in the future is for us to fight all these internal battles of warranties, preconditions, affidavits, whilst our competitors are out there continuing expanding their technological advancements and then stealing the place of best competitor in the field. If we do that, if we focus on our internal conflicts, we will both lose, and that is definitely how the industry operates. So from now on, I don't want any more for unnecessary matters to unravel days of progress, and I propose today the acknowledgement of both companies as independent players in different markets. And in order to do that, we need to finalize firstly our obligations under the existing contract, but with having that vision in mind for the future. And we have to take just one last small but necessary step back from one another in order to make more steps forward towards a more successful and profitable future for both our companies. So let's reflect in this final mediation session on the future. Let's become independent on terms favorable for both companies, finalize the technology transfer agreement, and discuss the legal aspects that my counsel has highlighted today.
David, you're welcome.
Can I
You're
take
welcome.
it from there? Okay, thank you, great. So once again, good morning, everyone. And let me just start by thanking you, Cameron, for your assistance in this process. Since our first session, we have climbed over so many obstacles, and we have already come so far. And today, we trust your assistance to go even further. Now, I was glad to hear that once seen as a company as a wrong partner, now we are seen as the right one. I'm happy to see that our willingness to hear, to cooperate, and to put ourselves in resistance shoes was perceived. And I think this is a great start for our session. Now, James and Diana, the first thing I wanted to point out is that I was so glad to hear that we share a common ground. We both want to solve the remaining issues in a timely manner. And also, I was very pleased to hear that from the start, our main concern, which is payment, is something that resistance is willing to address fully. Also, I heard that in order for us to walk together in the direction of a solution, we need to find and seek a framework that both companies operate independently and with special consideration to competition. Now, I would like to share Skynet's perspective for today's session. And let me just name the issue from the outset. We need payment. Skynet wants to comply with its obligations and provide resistance with the technology transfer. And Cameron, we have topics that we ourselves want to explore to make this happen. Yet, in order to assess the operational process to transfer the technology, and in order to move to all your concerns in regards to competition, and even schedule a draft for our actions, Skynet relies on firstly understanding and guaranteeing the resources that we will have and when we will have them. Beyond that, for the transfer to occur, I must present a fair and reasonable solution for my board regarding payment. Imagine, James, if I came back to my board and said that I have solved the battery issues, that I'm transferring the technology before the deadline and even thinking about competition, but that I cannot assure when our delayed payments will be made. So, with the utmost responsibility for my employees, my company, and my stakeholders, I must say that I come here with clear financial needs and under time constraints. Ultimately, if we reach an understanding that the outstanding payment will be made in a timely manner, we can assure resistance, that we will be side by side, tailoring this technology transfer to your needs and hearing all other future big dreams that resistance has. Lastly, Cameron, one underlying topic to this conversation that I don't want to miss, and I was happy to hear that this is somewhat solved for resistance, is that trust may not be yet fully restored between the parties. Yeah, James, I must say that for me, this is natural. Building trust has its steps. And we already have established communication, we have named the problems, and we have worked together towards a solution. So based on my experience as a businessman, I feel that in order to finally reestablish the trust, the only remaining step for us is reaching tangible and concrete solutions. And if we truly engage in solving our concerns regarding payment and the technology transfer and competition, I believe we will do just that and take this last step together. With that, hopefully, we can finally see the mountain that Cameron illustrated as just a beautiful view in the horizon behind us. Camila, this is what I needed to cover at this point. Could you take it from there?
Sure, David. And once again, good morning, everyone. Cameron, I would firstly like to thank you for accompanying us through the journey that has been the many mediation sessions that led us to this moment. You've mentioned that your role is similar to a GPS or tour guide, and I want to point out what a great one you have been. We truly feel that you guided us towards progress, as both as Dave, Diana, and James have presented. As you have all mentioned, this is our sixth meeting, and at this point, we are already familiar with the main contractual aspects and the events that brought us here at first. Also, we have already spent a great amount of time and efforts coming up with ways to gradually resolve the dispute at hand. So I'll be brief and I will go through three main aspects. What is my role here today? What is the overall legal perspective of Skynet at this point of the dispute? And finally, how Skynet sees this mediation session. So firstly, as for my role during our conversation, it is not to dwell on legalities, but rather to safeguard my client's interests and to ensure that any solution is enforceable, realistic, and feasible. Secondly, David has already mentioned from a business point of view how paramount payment is to Skynet. Bringing in a legal and contractual perspective, it is important that we remember that as per the contract, Resistance 2 owes Skynet the last installment of the overall payment that has up to now been delayed. Said amount, which we estimate to be around 450 million US dollars considering potential interest, is significant not only for the company, but also for the full execution of the contract. So it is vital for Skynet here at this table that we take the time to address how and when this amount can be transferred. Cameron, another aspect that I'd like to mention is the deadline for the transfer of technology. The deadline we're dealing with for the transfer of 45% of the technology is June 2021, just so that we can have the whole picture now at the table. Finally, as for how my client sees this mediation, we come here willing to jointly assess the concerns both parties brought, and through that, finally put an end to this dispute. I've noticed that Resistance mentioned their eagerness to collaborate, and I would like to say that we share this feeling and emphasize how valuable this can be during our session. And thankfully, mediation, in my experience, is truly the best procedure in which we can jointly address both parties' interests. Climbing the mountain Cameron presented to us during her initial remarks will be way easier if we do it together, which from what I've heard from Connor and Diana, I believe we will. Sorry for the names, James and Diana, from what I understood for you, thinking about technology transfer and reaching a market autonomy is important. For my client, I highlight his financial interest in guaranteeing Skynet will receive payment. So Cameron, from what I observed for transferring the technology and payment are codependent topics. So both of them will have to be discussed here today, as Diana has also pointed out on her initial remarks. Yet, just for the sake of structure, it would be beneficial for both Skynet and Resistance, as David has stated, to have an initial conversation about payment, which was due since the delivery of the last batches of drones, so that then we can have a more efficient and detailed conversation about transferring the technology, which is due by June.
Just before I make a summary of what you've said, pardon me, Camila, you said that transfer of technology and
payment are codependent.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to summarize what I have gathered from your opening statements, and you could correct me where you think I missed something or where I'm wrong. And I will begin with what I gathered from Resistance. So Connor, you say that what you really want from this mediation today is finalization of the transfer of technology agreement that you feel was not clarified in the agreement. You also think that the rumors that emerged recently have breached the trust and transparency that you've had with the other company. However, you're glad that you've been able to resolve this through the proactivity and willingness of Skynet to solve the matters that you've mentioned on board. You also stated that your interest clearly lie in the payment of the last shipment of the T1000 Max. You've also stated that what is so much of interest to you is the transfer of technology. You've also stated that you want this day to be the start of a new day for Skynet and Resistant, as you'd like to work as independent entities. You've also mentioned that you're actually glad that you have a common interest in the vision and mission of your companies, that is in humanitarian aid and solving the humanitarian crisis. Also stated that you actually have a good future for being independent companies, that is you, Resistance, and Skynet. Skynet, what I gathered from you is you appreciate the fact that you share the same vision with the Resistance, that is the humanitarian aid and the solving of the humanitarian crisis. Your interests clearly lie in the payments, that is in complying of the contractual obligations. For you to comply with contractual obligations that include technology transfer, you've stated that you need money payment from Resistance, and this is the $450 million dollars, considering significant interest mentioned by your counsel. You've also stated that for you to do this, you're facing financial needs and time constraints, and for you to be able to comply with these obligations, you need Skynet to make the payment. You've also stated that it is quite clear that trust may not be fully restored, and that will take time, and it's a process, and you're willing to go that way. Your counsel also stated that in the matter of technology transfer, it should be clear that that was in June 2021, and you're all interested in putting an end to the dispute. The agenda that I would write down on the share screen will include the payment of drones and the transfer of technology, and I am going to do it right now. As parties to this mediation dispute, you are allowed to make or add your issues to the common agenda that I am writing on board. The payment of—
And Jay, I just wanted to make a quick point. I know that it seems that we're aligned on the two issues to discuss today, but I'm sure as Skynet can appreciate, we had spent a lot of time discussing the technical aspects, and I believe that took a lot more time than we had accounted for. We don't wish to revisit that, as I believe we have agreement from our previous session, but we believe that addressing the issues with the remaining issues in the tech transfer can quickly finalize this issue, and then we can focus on the issue of payment, which I know logistically my client can also confirm. We're ready to discuss and ready to put pen to paper on making that payment occur. And my client can feel free to add further to that, but I think for that reason, we'd want to start with tech to color our discussion on the payment and get some more information so we can better understand and implement that payment in a way that makes both legal and logistical sense.
Indeed, just to add and confirm, perhaps it's better for the payment to stay the last term, just because we're going to cover everything under the contract. And at this point in time, the last item that has to be finalized is the technology transfer. We've discussed about the schedules and the type of engineers that we want to deploy, but today we want to finalize the commercial aspects that obviously are not in the agreement. And before we confirm payment and discuss the logistics, it has to be confirmed everything about the tech transfer, Jane.
So you can all see the share screen. Is it okay the way I have put it?
Yes, this is fine for Resistance, and I think it encapsulates what we just mentioned with respect to the discussion today.
I would like to hear what Skynet has to add.
Of course. So let me just say, I do understand this concern related to the transfer of technology. And let me assure you that I don't want to leave this table without discussing and solving the technology, and also the competitive risks that you have mentioned. Yet, in order to assess the operational process to transfer the technology, Skynet relies on firstly understanding the resources that will be available and when they will available.
Just to confirm then, in the interest of time, there is no issue in terms of resources and when. It's just about the logistics when you want the payment. So the discussion about the payment shouldn't take long. But I'm sure you can appreciate as a business person, before I confirm payment, we need to finalize the terms of the technology transfer, because it's not only about the future, it's also about what we mean commercially by each term and each technology component. So that's the reason why we want to start with the term.
Well, David.
And also, as
oh,
sorry, Camila, please, if you want, and I can just quickly add to what my client is going to say, that we were very close on finalizing that term, and we thought in the interest of keeping the momentum in the discussion, we could quickly go through the finalization of that term and then focus on the key issue that you mentioned and we both want to discuss here today of payment. And as my client mentioned, we have no problem finalizing the logistics of that payment right away.
What I was going to mention is that, David, I see that for Resistant, it is of utmost importance to discuss technology transfer. We have explained that payment is paramount for Skynet and alters the technology transferring discussion. Yet I'm sensing that if we keep discussing what we're going to discuss, then we're not really discussing anything. So in the benefit of time, I suggest that we hear Resistance concern in regard to technology transfer, so that we can then having their concerns mapped, and bearing in mind that during this first moment, we will not be able to agree to anything until we assess payment. We go on with the agenda that Cameron pointed out in the chat. Would you agree to that, David?
Yeah, in the interest of efficiency, thank you, Camila, for your assistance. And let me just say, I think that in some way they walk alongside. And I would only like to emphasize what Camila said. We want to map out your concerns. We will hear you. We will put again ourselves in your shoes. But let me just say, I cannot agree on anything before I know how payment will look like with all options.
Okay, so at this point of time, I have already shared the agenda in the chat and in the share screen where everyone can see. And after we come to an agreement in the first agenda, that is the transfer of technology, we will put in writing in the exact right words that you would like to see them in the mediation settlement agreement, and then we will move on to the next issue. But at this time, I will ask for a caucus. I would like to meet Resistance in private.
Okay, no problem for us.
The station
Okay for us as
supervisor.
well.
The session supervisor should be able to do this, right? Amanda, please, would like to have a private caucus.
Yeah, it is open the session for David and Camila. They're already there, so you may start.
Thank you. So hi, I realize that you have a lot of information concerning the transfer of technology, and this is of utmost interest and attention to you guys. And I really wanted to talk to you about transfer of technology. And would you please talk to me about what you want from Skynet? Tell me what are the most key issues that you would like to bring them on the joint session. So yeah, talk to me.
Of course, and I think my client can better kind of talk about this. We wanted to have some additional information, which my client will inquire about with respect to the aims of the company in a future relationship, just for the purposes of clarity. And then we have some proposals to finalize the commercial aspects, and I'll let my client briefly elaborate on what those are.
Indeed. So in order to obtain clarity, the question about the technology transfer is the reason why we want the technology transfer in the first place. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, Jane, the whole purpose of the agreement was for us to become independent and obviously develop this technology in-house. But at the moment, we have already discussed about, we've only discussed about the schedule, but not about the commercial aspects of this independence, how this independence might look like for us. So what I would like to discuss with David in particular is an exclusivity clause just for confirmation purposes that we can expand independently, which would, I'm sure you can appreciate, include being an independent manufacturer, an independent supplier, to have power of buying any technology components we might need. And as a background, you remember from the past mediation sessions that if we do not clarify this today, our competitors obviously are going to continue expanding in the market, And if any issue arises in the future about what we actually mean by this technology transfer and how we envisage resistance to operate independently, we're just going to lose time once again in mediations.
And
So
just to quickly clarify a point my client made, it's not about exclusivity, it's more about a guarantee that both companies can operate independently legally as per the agreement. And also, in the event that Skynet does raise concerns, we are prepared to offer a non-compete on any potential customers that they have, as they've mentioned, potential partnership and sales within the region. And we want to respect that particular relationship and time that they've built. So just to color my legally speaking from my client's perspective.
In particular, in light of all the partnerships they mentioned with other companies they have, for example, in West Republic, we do want to make sure that they do understand we want to focus on the local market. And at the same time, we want to make sure that they are going to cover all the other markets that they have expressed in their vision. So it will be just important to obtain this clarity on the vision on the markets and how they view their own independence from us, in particular in light of the technology.
Okay, so if I get you clearly, in as much as you're seeking this exclusivity clause to being independent and the guarantee that these companies can operate independently, is there a specific thing that you'd like Skynet to do for you so that when you go back to the joint session, you're able to state clearly that this is our issue and this is what we want from you?
I wouldn't really phrase it as an issue, to be honest, because it's about the future of both companies. We don't want, once again, to end up in mediations, in disputes, because we haven't clarified the markets we want to operate in, the type of focus on customer base we want to have, if we want to focus on drones, if they want to focus on something else. So it's in the interest of both companies, not necessarily an issue for us only.
Exactly what my client said. And I think just quickly, not to use the word exclusivity, because I think that will conflate and confuse the issues, but more of that a guarantee that each company can operate independently to kind of conclude the collaboration we've had to date. So I think that's just more for us having some clarifications and finalizing this, and then we're happy to move on to discuss the payment issue, as I know we're eager to conclude and have finite terms on that today as well.
Okay. Is there a form that you would like these clarifications to be made by word of mouth, by statement, or this guarantee? Is there some sort of form that you would like this guarantee to be shown?
It was after speaking with my client, the guarantee, I believe, would make most sense as an addendum to the technology transfer that we had already started to draft yesterday with the schedule of the technical aspects. So I think it's just something that can be added into the working document that we've already created with respect to that discussion.
Oh, okay, so if I get you clearly, you're saying that there is an already documented agreement that you have concerning the guarantee that you'd like to receive from Skynet.
Based upon our previous discussions yesterday, we had already gone through the technical aspects, and as counsel, I had noted that down for us to work into a final agreement, and I'm sure that Skynet has done the same.
So this is clearly about finalization of the technology transfer agreement, purely that?
Purely that, and based on simply the commercial aspects that my client mentioned, we're not looking to rehash anything else. I believe we've all had agreement on that issue, and I think we can resolve this quickly in order so we can move on to the payment issue, and we can further color that when we get to that issue as well.
Okay, so among all this information that you've told me, that you've communicated to me concerning the guarantee, the clarifications, and the finalization of the agreement, is there part of the information that you'd not like me to share?
I don't think we have any problem sharing it all. I think the only thing that we would really need help with is having my client be able to ask some questions of clarification to ensure that the vision is consistent and that whatever we put in the agreement is in line with my client's interest for separate and independent entities moving forward.
Unless there are other questions, I think we could go back to the joint session and have this conversation.
Sure, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I'm glad to have you all back again. However, before I talk about what we talked about in the caucus, in the private session with Resistance, I'm going to have a private caucus with Skynet. Hi.
Hello, Camille.
Hi, I'm glad that I'm meeting you for this private session, and your interest mostly align in the payment of drones. That is clearly pointed out in your opening statements and the agenda that you lay out. This company looks to be so much interested in the payment of the drones, and you're saying that that will help you to fulfill your contractual obligations, including the transfer of technology. However, while I had this conversation with Resistance, their interest lie in transfer of technology. In as much as I'm going to share this information when we go back to the joint session, I would like us to talk about the technology transfer agreement that you had yesterday. You have discussed the technical aspects. What is remaining is finalization of the agreement. I would like to know or have the information as to why this is still occurring today.
Well, I think that this comes alongside with payment. I think these are the last issues that come together that we didn't solve. I think that we need to solve them alongside. So what I can say for you, Cameron, is that we do have solutions. We do have things to offer to finalize this technology transfer. However, with our interest for payment, and also with a difficulty to talk about technology transfer without talking about payment, we may not have a fruitful conversation if we forget about it. So I would like to flag that in order to have a detailed conversation and in order to know what I can offer, I need to talk payment alongside technology transfer. And actually, it would be even better for me to have a clear picture of what resources will be available and when they will be available, to know how to work together with Resistance to find a solution for the technology transfer. And what I'm sensing is that, we accepted this agenda. We, in the interest of efficiency, we are trying to move forward as quickly as possible. But I think that we did not put our message across that these both topics work independently. And I was very happy to hear that at a first glance, they're willing to make the payment, but I need specifics. I need to go in details. And Camila, I think you can relate to that. It's something that we talked a lot about before this session, right, Camila?
Yes. So in fact, Cameron, what we would like help from you at this point is how to make ourselves clear that that those topics are codependent and that we are willing to transfer the technology, but this transferring depends on resources, and those resources come alongside payment. So we understand that we've agreed to transferring, and that what we have right now is a logistical discussion. And about payment, yes, they already gave us a guarantee that they will pay, and that's also a logistical discussion on how what amount, when. It's very clear that we have these details in order to be as efficient as possible, as my client has mentioned. So that's what we expect from you, and that's what the help we want from you at this point.
So Camila, if I get you clearly, you're saying that for technology transfer to happen, there has to be payment. And you're stating that Resistance had already made a guarantee that they were going to pay for all of this, for the resources to be available, for the transfer of technology to go on. My question, therefore, is what do you really want from Resistance? What do you want when you go back to the joint session?
So what we want to do is understand what resources they will have, when the payment will occur, we need to have a lot of details how this payment is going to be made. So once we have that, I will be confident to propose solutions, knowing that I can come back to my board and show them that with all the effort that we are putting to put an end to this dispute came payment. And I must say, this is being kind of stressful for us. From the last sessions, we are trying to put this message forward. We need to see this money. However, we are really eager to see in this session, walking alongside resistance and tackling on our side the payment and on their side the technology. So,
David, if I may jump in,
course,
there are three key aspects that from what David have mentioned that are how much, how, and when. It's very important for us to have those guarantees. And when we come back to the session, we're willing to hear to map out their concerns in regards to transferring the technology, but we want to make it very clearly that it is not possible for us to come to tackle an option in regards to that without assessing the financial resources. David, do you think I missed anything?
I think that was clearly. Yeah, thank you for your assistance, Cameron.
Okay, so lastly, let me just get this clear. You're saying that you're willing to transfer the technology to resistance if they give you a guarantee that they are going to make the payment, they show you how much, they show you how, and they tell you when they're going to make the payment. That is when you will agree to transferring the technology and finalization of the agreement. Do I get you correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Cameron.
Just last question. Is there some sort of way that you'd like this guarantee or this communication to be made to you?
Well, I think that in any way that we have details, specifics would fit our interest. But I would like to emphasize, we have a time constraint. We need to see as much money as we can and in the less time as possible. So with those two things in mind, if we can assess with them solutions, we will be eager to propose them solutions that could be even better than the contract proposed. So I'll hand it to you. Camila, did I miss anything?
No, I believe you covered it all. So I pass the word to you, Cameron.
I actually have everything right. I would just like to ask, is there any information that you would like me to talk about when you go back to the joint session and the ones that you don't want me to talk about? So I am clearly asking for your permission before I lay out this information in the joint session.
Well, nothing that we've mentioned here is confidential, so everything can be mentioned in the collective session, but we can share this information directly with them.
All right, for the purposes of this whole mediation session, I clearly see that the first agenda and the second agenda are co-intertwined, and there is no way we can separate them. So I think when you go back to the joint session, we can just connect them together and we can do this.
Well, thank you very much, Cameron. I think that will suit our interest.
All right, see you in the joint session.
Do we know how much time? I'm sorry.
Hi again. I am actually grateful that I met each and every one of you in the private caucuses, and this is for the purposes of moving in the right direction so that we don't have to, have this conversation without a direction. The direction is moving up the mountain and walking down the mountain together. That is the clear direction that I can talk to you about. And from the conversations that I've had with each one of you, you've given me a full permission to talk about all of the confidential information that would otherwise have been kept away from this mediation session. And it is clear to me that we have the first, I will just go directly to the Word document, that we have the first agenda and the second agenda being intertwined. So I do not see the need of separating these two because one cannot work without the other. And as you can see, I'm actually grateful that each and every one of you is seeing that you have a common agenda, and it is the easiest of all. Allow me to share what we had with resistance in the first caucus. They were so clear about the transfer of technology, that for them to act independently, they need the transfer of technology from you, Skynet. And all they need is the guarantee and the finalization of the technology transfer agreement that you had already talked about, and already talked about the technical aspects, and now you would like to finalize on the commercial aspects. Also, their client would like to ask questions to the Skynet about some of the clarifications before finalization of that agreement. When I had the conversation with Skynet, it is clear that what is of key importance to you is payment of the drones. And you're stating that when this payment will be made, this will be able to help you to comply with your contractual obligations. You also stated that for the transfer of technology to happen, there has to be payment. And your wants are clearly laid out as for the transfer of technology to happen to resistance, there has to be clearly laid out detailed and specifics on how much you will pay, how you will pay, and when the payment will occur. For that case, I clearly say that we have to talk about the payment. This is because when you agree on the payment, like I said, this is the statement that Skynet made. If resistance complies with payment, they will be able to make the technology transfer. And it is of key importance that we have this conversation about payment. So at this point, I will ask resistance to have the conversation to tell us what you have about the payment that will be able to help you have the technology transfer. You're welcome.
And I think first, although we understand that payment's an issue, we believe if we spend a quick resolution on the tech issue, we can at least get the terms finalized contingent on resolving the payment issue. As you mentioned, they are related, but we don't see this taking a lot of time. And with some brief clarity, we believe this issue can be resolved and we can focus entirely on those questions that you asked to resistance. So if Skynet would be willing to give us a few minutes to quickly wrap this issue up entirely, then we can have terms that can be contingent upon the payment we agree today.
May I make a suggestion?
I would like to gauge Skynet's reaction on that.
Yeah, of course. So let's, in the interest of efficiency, let's jump directly into that. So could you please flag your priorities regarding the transfer?
Of course, and just before my client kind of lays those clarifications to finalize this issue, as we mentioned previously, the intent of the agreement was always for us to be independent, and that's why the agreement was set up as an assignment and a transfer of technology. And I think with some brief clarifications and questions from my client, we can finalize the commercial aspects and leave the terms in place contingent upon our full agreement of all other aspects. So with that, I turn it to my client to ask the questions that need to be answered today.
Yes, indeed. I'll try to be very brief. And before I make my proposal, just two questions for you, David, just to make sure I understood your vision correctly and the tech transfer addresses the interests of both companies. The first one, do I understand correctly that your priority as Skynet is high tech in general, expanding in any sectors as many as you can, not only drone manufacturing? Is this correct?
Well, before I pass the word to David to answer your question, James, if I may rephrase what Diana has brought. So your concern regarding to technology transfer is to act independently and reaching this autonomy, right?
Yes and no. The concern is about the future of both companies and how we want to operate both independently in different markets, not only in this republic, but in the neighboring countries as well. So this leads back to the point of vision that I mentioned in my opening statement, reason why I'm asking these two questions, so that I can make a proposal that benefits both Resistance and Skynet and meets our vision.
So our company, as we said, is a company specialized in UAVs, and we have other endeavors. But to be honest, I think we are willing to explore these future endeavors. But I do feel, and I would ask for Cameron's assistance on this, we're jumping to things that are not specifically related to the contract we already have. What I'm saying is I'm willing to discuss about our endeavors and other things that our company has, but I do need to have a clear picture on your priorities regarding the transfer as of we had in our previous agreement. So I think that Camila, maybe you could help me to get this message across?
Of course, actually, I can address this right now in the interest of time once again, unless Camila, of course, you want to rephrase.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so in the interest of both companies, what we have seen happening in the past mediation sessions is that we have been focusing on our internal issues while we can trade off solving the battery system. You hired a market leader in the technology sector to solve the issue, right? In the meantime, as I mentioned in my opening statement, our competitors are focusing on developing their own technology. You were able, David, to come up in a couple of days, maximum 2 weeks, with a new battery system. You told me yourself your engineering teams have been working tirelessly to offer something back so that we can have another model of drones that is meeting our needs. You know more than I do, we both know, everyone in the room, that the speed of technology is absolutely monumental. Well, imagine if you hadn't had in these past days and weeks to push your engineers to come up with this new battery technology to be offered to us. Imagine what would have happened had it not been this dispute in the past 8 months, and you would have been able to come up with the battery system on your own 1 year ago, for example, or 8 months ago. So for this reason, what I want to propose, because we want to focus on the market and become the best, is a clarification clause, and council can take care of the legal details of both council in the technology transfer agreement, that we want to focus on different markets. And this would include that Skynet enables Resistance to act as an independent supplier, as an independent manufacturer, and to have independent purchasing power, so that you can focus on other sectors, not only on drone manufacturing. You can focus on other partnerships with the companies that you mentioned in West Republic without having the need every single time to come to us to clarify what we do in-house. Would this breach the agreement or not? Would this reach another dispute? So this is the sole reason that we want to have this clarification clause. And council, I'm sure she has proposals how to draft it exactly so that we can move on to discuss payment.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say with my client, is that all we're asking for is this additional point within our technology transfer. And then we have no issue moving on to the issue of payment, but we wanted to make this clear in the terms, so that way also we could both move towards independence and fulfilling the obligations without future disputes. We don't want to lay in the past. We've already hashed out the technical details, as I'm sure Camille and I can appreciate, was very difficult, and our engineers thankfully are here to do that for us. So I think with this guarantee in the contract, we would have no problem moving on to discuss the issue of payment, as well as I know that it's of critical importance to finalize everything we've discussed in the last 5 sessions.
Allow me to summarize the information that you have provided, that all you need from Skynet is this clarification clause to be added in the agreement that you've been discussing, that when they enable you to use the technology transfer, there is no need to make further interruptions in your own independent market. Am I correct?
And also as a key point, that we can operate independently as manufacturers, suppliers, buyers, sellers, purchasing power on our clients in whatever spaces we seek to expand our particular technologies.
I would like to gauge Skynet's reaction on this clarification clause and what you have to say about it.
Well, thank you so much for the summary, Cameron. And from what I heard from you, Diana and James, being independent is of great importance, and for us it is as well. And there's also a time constraint involved in the negotiations, in the operational negotiations that we're having regarding the technology transfer. So I pass the word to David so that he can share his thoughts on that and perhaps provide us with a better, a clearer picture from Skynet's perspective.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Camila. And what I would like to say is that I value how much you value to be. I value how much you want to be independent. So we want. And I think we do have options to offer you alongside with the technology transfer that will even enhance this relationship, this framework between our companies. And I would ask for Cameron assistance to get back to this option once we finalize the specifics of the technology transfer that we already have. And let me just say for James, I'm willing to consider that. And we will consider that when we are finalizing the technology transfer. But as I said, in order to propose the solutions, I need to see the payment. And in those regards, I would like also to have a clearer picture. So I was very glad to hear that from first glance you're willing to make the payment, but I would like to know how and when.
Just before resistance gives the response, David, I have a very specific question. What do you say about the clause on enabling resistance to operate independently? What is your take? Are you taking this or are you not taking this? So that before we move to payment, I would like to know what you have to say about it.
Well, if I may jump in, David, and answer this question. As we mentioned, it is also of our interest to have this independency, but as we have stated, it is important for us. I understand that this independency comes together with technology transfer, and before we take it or take something, take it and agree to that, we need to have this whole clear picture, because yeah, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So I would like to come back to David's question on Skynet, on resistance financial situation, and if they can comply to this payment, how much, how, and when.
Yeah, I think this is an important conversation that I think resistance you would be interested to respond to.
Of course, and I can let my client discuss the payment details further, and we've come prepared to try to finalize all terms today, as we mentioned at the beginning. I think for my client, if we can have a tentative approval that this term can be in the final agreement and we can further discuss it again if there's issues with payment, I think in the interest of time of moving forward, if there's tentative agreement from Skynet and no pushback on this proposal of a clause, we're happy to delve right into the payment issue and answer your questions directly. But this is of key importance for us just to finalize this one piece so we can have a complete package once we're done today in today's session to move forward.
Okay, so Cameron, to be honest, I'm feeling that our messages are not being crossed because, let me say, we do have a common ground and we have options that enhance even what you proposed in relation to us being independent. My counsel has showed me some frameworks of competitive clauses, which I think she will later on expose. But I think we cannot get into that before we know when, how, and how much we will receive this payment. So let me just put it like this. In principle, if we get into a satisfactory solution to payment, if we know how much, how, and when the payment will be made, we then will be willing to include this in the technology transfer. And also, I think that Camila will later bring a solution that even enhance this. So let me just come back to this question. I would like to know, what is Resistance current financial situation regarding the last and remaining installment?
And I can quickly respond to that and then delve right into the payment issue, that as long as we have the understanding that these are contingent, we're fine to move on to the payment issue. And I know my client can further elaborate on the payment issue, but I know there was an issue of clarification that we wanted to ask. First and foremost, that in our previous discussions, the number we've always discussed has always been 420 million. But today there was a different number that was thrown out there in the opening statement of 450. We just wanted to clarify, was that number supposed to be 420 or was that a different number? And I think my client can then further elaborate some questions to move the payment issue along and address your concerns.
Now, if you don't mind, David, I can answer this question. We presented a figure of 450 is Republic dollars, considering also interest and fines, which would add to the outstanding invoice, and it would be a figure based on our initial value for the contract. But this would it would be we're willing to discuss this amount with you. We presented this initial value, but David, if you could share your remarks, I know you have something to say in regards to that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure I have. So look, this is very important for us business-wise. So we would like to hear if Resistance can comply with this amount.
And I'll let my client answer as he is the CFO and can better understand and give color to the numbers today.
Sure. To address your question, David, we are in the possession of the funds, and we have expressed that in the past mediation sessions as well. Payment has never been an issue for us. It has been just a question when the shipment of the 40 drones are going to happen. You confirmed in the past mediation session that shipment of the 40 drones with enhanced battery and the characteristics is going to happen. So when we receive the shipment in the next week, on that particular day, we can also release the funds. That is no problem of when. We do not want to delay the payment. Does this answer your first question so far?
So let me just get that clear. So all the amount you're referring to, the 420 million, can be released promptly, like immediately.
We haven't discussed about the number of 420, 450. This is to be negotiated and discussed. But funds, there is no problem of when. Just wanted to clarify that first question. That we're in the possession of the funds, okay?
So I hear you and I believe you, but I do need to emphasize that for my board, I need to bring something specific. So I need to go through the amount, to how and when. So I was really looking forward to hear from you if you can make this payment promptly, if you and how this payment would be made. I really need a clear picture on how that will look like.
As I've already mentioned, there is no question of when. When we receive the drones next week, on the same day, we can release the payment. Escrow account, both councils after this session can clarify the financial aspects and the legal aspects. Now, I appreciate you have to come with a figure to your board, and I have to confirm a figure as well as the CFO. To be honest, it is quite surprising that we start with a figure of 450 because our impression has been, firstly, we do acknowledge all the efforts that Skynet has done. You came up with a battery system in a matter of days. Then once again, you hired an expert so that we can have better drones in the interest of the humanitarian crisis. But we've also understood in the past sessions that you've made an acknowledgement of the accountability that Skynet has to bear for what has happened in the past months. And just to mention a couple of examples, we are talking about lithium batteries that we didn't know about, that they cannot deliver the way they want to, delays in shipment because we were supposed to have the 40 drones in January, drone 16, issues of communication, tech transfer, and so on. I don't want to put the past on the table again, but this has been our understanding coming today, that you have acknowledged all this accountability and you have in the past expressed willingness to offer us a discount on the last shipment of the 40 drones. Reason why we have been discussing in the figure of 10%, but as fair and equitable for all the efforts and the fact that this is the last mediation session and everyone is proactive and willing to come to a settlement, we think that 8% discount on the last payment of 420 million East Republican dollars reflects exactly the efforts that we've put on the table and the efforts that you yourself put on the table.
Okay, and I just want to clarify a quick point with my client as well, is that to date, we've paid for the first 80 shipments and we didn't request any additional penalties despite the delay and the accountability issues that we had previously discussed. So we are just really trying to clarify an offer that was made to us of a discount, and we're willing to do that, and we're willing to get the funds to you as quickly as possible. That's not an issue at all, if that's your concern. I have confidence today in exploring these issues. We can come to an agreement and give you a proposal to go back to your board to provide that reassurance.
Resistance, let me just get one thing clear. All you're asking for is a discount of the 450 million dollars that is concerning the last shipment of the drones, so that
420, because each drone costs 10.5 million East Republican dollars. 40 in total would be 420. That's what the contract stipulates. So it will be a discount of 8% on the 420.
But at this time, you have a play of 450 million versus 420 million, right?
420 was the initial value on the contract. I understand they are asking an 8% discount on this value, right? And firstly, I would like to flag how important for us it is to know that this payment will be able to be made next week. That's really important for us. So I thank you for giving us this clarification and assurance. And so just to make sure I understood you correctly, you're proposing that the last payment to be made next week. You would like to have an 8% discount on the 420 million value. And I asked David, how do you think that this meets Skynet's interest?
Well, thank you, Camila. I must say that below 400 million is something that is really unfeasible to me. This is not something reasonable that I can come back to my board and present it to them. But in the interest of moving forward, let me just propose. Let's state with your figure, the 8%, and maybe apply that to the 450 that our team has estimated. So what I'm proposing here is 8% discount on the 450 million. And I would like to hear from you. This is between 400, which is the lowest for me. This would be really unfeasible for me. And 420, which is the value that we have contracted. And let me take a step back, Cameron, and let me explain this to you. As a businessman, something very important for me is the logic between investment and return. We have invested so much in this technology. We have made a lot of efforts to produce these outstanding drones that are a leader in the market. And also, as James has said, during all these sessions, we have put ourselves in their shoes. And in this session, I would ask for reciprocity. Payment is the only and last thing that we need to move forward and to finally see the mountain that you mentioned behind us. So I really ask special consideration to that. If we can get to a value that is feasible for me, then I will be willing to move forward with all depending issues. So I would like to come back to James and see if we can agree on this figure.
That by agreeing on the figure, you mean agreeing on the 8% of the 450 million US dollars. So yeah, I would like to hear Resistance reaction to this.
And I'll turn it over to my client to provide further color on the numbers. But with respect to the 8% discount, and in terms of kind of justifying exactly why we'd want this discount at the 420 million, my client and I, in advance of this meeting, spoke with our government contacts. And if we could secure this discount in a show of good faith for acknowledgement of the past accountability issues, the government would be willing to enter into negotiations with Skynet right away for a discounted price on lithium under the market price. I know that we've mentioned in previous sessions with your innovation and the batteries and other potential market opportunities you're exploring, lithium and supplies have been a critical issue, and we've heard you. And that's why we've come to the table today, that if we're able to secure this discount, we can also offer this direct line to the government to begin the negotiations on this issue right away. But this would be contingent on the 8% at 420 million. And as I've mentioned previously, we haven't asked for delays. We haven't asked for penalties. So asking us to pay above what we contracted at this point is really something new for us that was never previously raised, particularly in light of the discount that was previously offered to us. And I'll turn it to my client to further elaborate on the numbers, as that's his area of expertise.
Sure, in terms of numbers and the offer, Council has presented it quite clearly, 8% of 420 maximum plus the lithium offer. And you expressed, David, concern what the board is going to say, but in the long run, I'm sure you can appreciate it's better to have an exclusive partnership with the government, since we are the world's largest exporter of lithium for all the products and the batteries you're going to use, instead of having an 8% discount of the 450. And to let you respond to the offer, which is in the interest of your company, both in the short term because you get the money, and in the long term because you get an exclusive partnership with the government, I would also appreciate some explanation behind 450, because you mentioned interest, but how is interest calculated? Based on what factors? How did you reach this figure? We started with 420, but why exactly 450? If you want to elaborate on that as well.
Well, this figure was based on the delay and on what David has mentioned about an investment logic. And I would like to restate his what my client has mentioned earlier about not being able to of how unfeasible it is for Skynet to receive a value below 400 million US dollars. So we are willing to negotiate on the value, and we are willing to reach a number that's lower to 450, but below 400 million dollars, it's really unfeasible. So David, please, if you could reframe your remarks on the investment logic on how receiving this value is important for guaranteeing the transfer of technology, which is of resistance interest as well.
Of course. So just building on what I'm sorry, Cameron.
Allow me to interrupt.
Okay, I'm sorry.
While you're also talking about the investment logic, the council has stated that you're willing to talk about the, discounting from 450, but as long as it doesn't go below 400 million dollars. She's also stated that you're willing to, negotiate on the 450 million dollars. Would you please, when you're talking about the investment logic, could you also address this matter?
Of course, of course. So, look, I don't want to get too stuck on a figure. I really need to come back to a figure. But I can say that if we can come to a figure as close as possible to the contract value, I would have a position, a feasible position to bring to my board. So let me just put it like that. Which amount seems reasonable to you? And let me just restate, I just can't assure you anything below 400. And I would be irresponsible to promise you something that once I come back to my board and explain them what is the agreement that we had, we would not have a solution. We would not have crossed the mountain. So I really need to hear from you. Let's negotiate this. Let's reach a reasonable amount for both of us.
Sure, David. I now realize I didn't mention that I heard your concern about the 400 million. I understand what that means, that you cannot go lower than what the board of directors said. We are fine with 400 million to respect your interest as well. Does this mean that you will accept the offer of 400 million, which will include 20 million discount?
So if we agree on 400 million, that would work for me. I would only ask for Camilla's help for us to get into the specifics, so that we can later on work on the specifics. So I heard from you a date that on the next week we will have. I heard that this will probably occur with the escrow account, and that the amount will be 400. So with that in mind, I know how important it is for you, the technology transfer. And as I have stated since the beginning of this session, this is also a common ground for us. So I see that we have few time to discuss this, but let me just put like, Camila, if you could help us to think how can we propose something for the tech transfer now that we have.
David, your audio got cut. We didn't hear you.
Of course. So I'll be more than willing to move on to the topic that we heard from James related to the technology transfer. I really do hope that in these few minutes we can address your concern.
David, just allow me to interrupt at this moment, so that before we move on to the tech transfer, I hear, or from what I gather from you parties, you have agreed on the payment of between 450 and 420, and you have agreed on 420 million East dollars. So I will just check with Skynet whether it's a yes or a no, then check with resistance before we lay down this in the share screen as a resolution.
Well, actually, we've agreed on receiving a payment of 400 million East dollars by next week throughout our escrow agent. And just to confirm with you, before we move into technology, this payment can be made upfront.
I would like to.
Go ahead, please. I was going to briefly respond to Camila about the agreement of 400, and we're happy to discuss the details to finalize this term as well. My client, as mentioned, would accept the 400 million, and this would be contingent that the payment would be put into escrow and released upon delivery of the 40 drones that we mentioned with the enhanced specifications we previously agreed upon. So for purposes of security, we're happy to put the money in there now to be released. And if my client has anything further or other technicalities I missed, please feel free to add, Mr. Khanna.
No, this encompasses everything, but the payment is contingent upon finalizing the clarification clause of the tech transfer, as we have discussed half an hour ago.
Okay, so I am going to put this in writing, and you could just correct me if I am wrong. You have agreed to pay 400. That is okay. Agreed to pay 400 million East dollars. You said via escrow agent, right?
We'll put it into an escrow account that the parties can mutually agree on after the conclusion of the session, and the funds can then be released by that agent upon delivery of the 40 drones to resistance.
All right. This is resistance making the payment.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so correct me if I am wrong. This is what we have agreed on.
And I think the key part here is that it's contingent to be released upon delivery of the 40 drones.
Released upon the delivery of the 40 drones.
Diana, just to make sure, we're willing to make sure that this will in fact happen. So we're willing to commit to that. To the delivery.
Thank you very much. So I think at this time we will move to the transfer of technology, and I think we have 7 minutes left.
Well, considering this short amount of time, David, would you like to propose what we have thought on regards to technology transfer?
Yes. So actually, I think this will once again show how we can put ourselves in your shoes. So if we have received the payment, immediately when we receive the payment, we could conclude the transfer of technology, all depending transfer of technology. And adding to that, I heard from you how linked this is to a time constraint related to the scenario of a market, a competitive market, in which you want to have competitive advantage. So I want to share with you something about me and then propose an option about this. So, you know, we are known as a startup, as a decacorn, as a unicorn, and we have a headquarters that looks like an amusement park. This is because we like to take things freshly, as youngly and lightly as possible. But some things we take very seriously. And one of them is our philosophy, that technology should be a line, that should be a way to develop countries. And hearing from you how important this is to your competitive advantage for development of your country, I think that we can work together for both parties to act on independently on different markets. And I would ask for Camilla's assistance. Is this legally feasible, Camilla?
Yes, David, I understand it is legally feasible, and perhaps on the interest of time, me and Diana can assess a new contract, competitive clause later, so that we can set the details on how this expansion and how this non-exclusivity will be made. And we would like to hear from Resistance, or what are their thoughts on that, and if there's any specific region, country in which they would like to expand, so that we perhaps can offer our help.
And I'll just briefly respond that the proposal that you made, David, and with Camila is exactly the proposal we had started with when we had initially proposed that we just want to guarantee an addendum in the technology transfer about we'll be able to operate independently as suppliers, manufacturers, buyers, and sellers. And that once the technology is transferred, it's fully assigned in line with the agreement. And I believe we're both aligned, and thank you for your confirmation of our initial offer. With respect to your issues on competition, I'm sure my client can further elaborate, but I think following this meeting, in the interest of time, we can have a separate meeting, Camila, to discuss any competitive issues that may come up. But I'm going to turn it over to my client in case she wants to directly address any of those concerns right now in line with any comments made.
Indeed, Council, I completely agree. It seems as it is the same offer. So just to clarify, since we have 3 minutes left, David, are you all right with us adding a clarification clause in the agreement which stipulates that Skynet allows resistance to act independently, including independent supplier, independent manufacturer, and independent purchasing power?
Yes, I do confirm, and I would like only to restate what we said. Alongside payment, alongside the technology of transfer, we may in the future we may even help you with this competition, with these new markets. We have a lot of experience in that. So let me just state what this clause would mean for me. This would mean that we would be aligned, that both parties would be acting independently, that you will not have to exclusively buy things from us and need our assistance. You could operate independently. And I would ask one last time, Camila, it's really important for me, if we are acting independently, that we have also to establish on how both companies will operate on different markets. So this is a detail that is very important for us. We don't want to be in any way taking value from Skynet or otherwise. I think that we can coexist as partners, and it's very important to me to get into details of this once Camila and once Camila and Diana can further elaborate a competitive clause. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so due to the time constraints, I think I am going to add that in the agreement that we have already drawn here, and I will get the correct wordings from Skynet that correct me also if I am wrong, that we have the resolution as resistance agrees to allow Skynet agrees to allow resistance to act independently. Kindly correct me if I am wrong. To act independently, including as manufacturers, suppliers, sellers, and purchasing power. Skynet, did I get it correct?
You
Yes.
mean resistance, right?
What?
Sorry, you meant resistance, Jane, right?
Yes, I meant resistance. Kindly correct me if I am wrong.
I can step in there. I think that's correct. And obviously Camila and I can have a separate meeting to discuss the details. And I know my client had one other further point to add in response to David on this point as well.
Indeed,
Okay.
in the interest of time, because competition is of great importance to us as well, it would be better to sit down in another meeting to discuss what partnerships we want to have in the future, what sectors we want to operate in, what type of technology we want to expand both in East Republic and outside, and then see where we find a common ground and where we can expand independently. But in the interest of time, I don't think we can discuss and agree on something that is just a general proposal in the beginning.
Yeah, and if I may respond to that, Cameron, just real quick, I would like to say that I'm very happy for us to have the next session. I think that Camila will be of great help to setting this up. And I would like only to say how happy I am to see that now we have moved past the mountain. We can see that what we have ahead of us is only a track of collaboration, partnership, and I really think that this is a long-standing and something that can bring the benefit for both companies. And thank you very much for this time. As we have put ourselves in your shoes in the last sessions, I see that you put yourselves on our shoes to show that our interest for having our payment, our financial interests have been met. We felt from you a partner. So thank you very much for this. And thank you, Cameron, for your assistance once again.
Well, I'm going to make my closing remarks before we end the session. I want to thank you again for being open-minded and laying out the solutions and ideas on the table. And as you can see, we started down the conflict mountain, we've met through the breakthrough, and here we are working together against the problem. And that is a great significant advantage of mediation. And I promise you, the next time you want to have anything, you should take mediation home with you. And at this time, I would like to ask you to stay safe until the next time we'll have this session. And thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cameron, as well.
Thank you all.
And this concludes the session. Thank you all for this excellent session. We're about to put the judges for a couple of minutes for deliberations in their breakout rooms so they can discuss internally what their opinions are. And then we hope to see you back again in a couple of minutes with your feedback for the finalists. Thank you.
And Kai, to confirm, we're still going to be live during this whole session, correct?
Yes, we're currently live. I was just about to to start by asking you all how you feel. How was it?
It was great. It was so much fun. A very productive discussion. I'm very happy how everything turned out.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to do the session with such great people, and really you're all great, and it's really nice. Yeah, I mediated your first session, right, Jessica and Andra, so it's great to see you again.
Yeah,
and yeah,
the same, Camila. Pleasure to see you again, and nice to meet you this time as well, David.
It's a pleasure. We have been with Faith during a couple of sessions right now. So yeah, it actually felt for us as if she was accompanying the whole process. So I wasn't lying on that.
You were so lucky, Faith. You've been amazing. Thank you so much for creating our session. It has been a
thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you guys are also amazing, man. I was I kept asking myself, I hope these guys are going to reach an agreement at the end of the day, because I don't want to get out of here without an agreement. You know what I'm saying? I really wanted you to agree on something. It's kind of a goal for a mediator.
Well, sincere congratulations to you as well and the mediation competition. It was really a pleasure to have you this session for us.
Thank you. You actually didn't meet in any of the rounds.
Sorry?
I haven't met either of you in any of the rounds.
We've only met Camila actually mediated our first session.
I can just chime in, and I can relay some information from the chat. Faith, you are a superstar. You have a lot of fans in the chat. And,
thank you, everyone who is watching right now.
That is, and everybody is overall so impressed with everyone's performance. It's a pleasure, and we know only one of you can win, but this is going to be a tough decision for anyone. How did you feel about the confidential information for the last round? Did you think now finally we're coming to an end, or?
Yeah, as Faith said that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Andra, please.
No, exactly what Faith said. I hope we reach an agreement, and it seems probably the drafting team is going to confirm that they've been drafted so that we can reach an agreement pretty much.
And I was just going to echo the same. I think it was really nice to see kind of the progression, and it's realistic in terms of how you had progressed through everything. And I think with payment being one of the last outstanding terms for us, it was really realistic to kind of, okay, we've given you everything. We've all talked about what we've wanted, but now everybody wants to get paid at the end of the day. So I think that was really realistic in terms for us to think about the issues and how we've progressed and what to build upon in our previous rounds.
Yeah, we do felt the same. It's incredible how realistic this problem is, despite the ludic drone ambience that the case has. As for all the confidentials, it's very realistic, very hard to prepare on one day to, as you have brought previously, to put yourselves in the shoes of a CEO of a council in this situation. And well, it was a great experience.
Yeah, and it's nice to notice what Jessica has mentioned about the progression, because on the first confidentials, we seem like there's this general issue, and we have many points to tackle, and in this last one, it's very specific what we have to talk about. So it's easier in a sense to prepare the session, but we know that there's a specific issue for us and there's a specific issue for the other side. So we have to think of the better way to combine them so that we can assess everything in this short 90 minutes time that we have to talk about. So yeah, but it was really nice. We really appreciated this last confidentials.
Hi, allow me to ask a question. I remember when we had our the first training on Saturday, you said that this was a problem, like a real problem, not a hypothetical problem. And I would like to ask you, if truly this is a real problem, how far are you in solving it? I mean, is the confidential information that you're giving us part of the truth, or this is just, enticing the story?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think what I meant last week was that we had a previous, in I think 2018, we had a previous case that was adapted from a real life case. And I think the problem was revolving around the Sao Paulo Olympic Games. No, Rio Olympic Games, sorry, Brazil Olympic Games. And there was an importing issue about a horse, a competing horse, and they were mediating this case. And I don't know if Camila and David have heard of that case, but apparently that you did.
We have our coach. Yeah, she mentioned that.
Yeah, so that was a real life case. We will have and we already have the first problem team people in the waiting room. Right after this session, after you get your feedback, we will have the people that wrote on the problem to talk about what the thought process was, where they're adapting their ideas from. And as far as I know, maybe they'll correct me in a minute, in a couple of minutes, but I don't think it's a completely real life case. But it is something that is being discussed right now. And there's like certain adaptations from it that are being discussed in the real life world. Also, we'll talk about how realistic this whole idea is with the drones delivering goods into the crisis areas. So that's going to be a really interesting discussion that we have coming up. In the meantime, I just wanted to quickly recap our this week our competition, and just as Faith already said, we started on Saturday with the conference talking about the current hot topics and practical tips for young practitioners. We had our speakers there that were Damali Peterman, Claire Connellan, Tom Valenti, and Diego Falik. And I think they really had a great focus on what is important in the real life world for mediation and negotiation practices in general. I think a lot of, or basically all teams did a great job in adapting and using this new knowledge and new information for the following sessions. Overall, we had 15 teams across 4 continents, which was the most international our competition has ever been. I guess this is one of the upsides of this whole pandemic, that we were able to get a lot more teams from the international sphere and bring everyone together from all over the world, from wherever they are. This like finished in these finals where we have you, Faith, from Kenya. We have Jessica and Andra from the UK. I think you're both in the UK right now, or not somewhere else. And then David and Camila in Brazil, with me being here in the US in New York, and our judges being in Brazil and Miami and New Jersey. So a completely worldwide spanning set of people coming together for this live session. And this is actually, for a lot of people, the reality. We heard some judges that have to go into a session or a Zoom call at 2 a.m. at midnight because the other business partners are in Australia, on the other side of other end of the world. And this is actually what's happening in the real life world right now. We also, just a quick fact, we had 21 sessions over the course of the whole week, and with the help of our co-hosts and all of our hosts, we made this work really great. I think I don't think any session was canceled or delayed too much. It was all running as smooth as it could possibly happen, and I'm really happy that it worked that way. And I saw that the judges are back just arrived in the Zoom room, and without further ado, I'll let you judges take it over from here and give your feedback.
Very good, thank you. I was selected to go first, so I will. I'll just tell you briefly about myself, but this is not about me whatsoever. Just to let you know, I have been in many of these competitions, and I have judged these competitions, and I've brought teams to ICC and to CDRC since 2009. So I understand what you are going through. I understand how all encompassing this is and how focused you are. And I congratulate you for coming to this level. The teams are usually so wonderful, all of them, that it's very difficult to make some distinction as far as winning. Almost the idea of winning a mediation competition itself seems like an oxymoron. Everybody wins, right, with mediation in reality. And I want to talk to you about reality, which is my world. I do a little academic, but mostly I'm a mediator. I have many mediations. I have several coming this week. And I will tell you that I do not anticipate that the lawyers and the clients who are going to be involved in those mediations will be as able, as prepared, and as, how should I say, adept at the negotiation and collaboration that you all demonstrated today. That is the truth. And also, what is the real world? The real world is time is short. You had a short amount of time in each of the sessions, and of course this session. My only comment, which is an overriding comment on the real world, not so much for the competition, is many times you do have a series of mediation sessions. You have an issue that has been discussed at length, and then you have to, as we say, you run it up the flagpole. You have to go to the powers that be. You have to discuss it. You have to see if it'll fly with them, and then you have to come back. So we often have a series of mediation sessions. We don't go back to what happens in the first session. We say, this is where we are. We focus right away, and we say, these are the two issues. Now this is an artificial, it's a competition, and it was helpful to go into the evolution of the conversation, climbing the mountain, to use our mediator's metaphor, and the climbing down. But in the real world, just to let you know, people will say, this is what we had to address. Usually as the mediator, when I send my calendar invite, I'll say, this is what we shall address. Be prepared. So it's a bit more focused. And as I said, it is true that you have a series of mediation sessions to make those small steps towards resolution. And it can take a lot of times. And I'm finding that is actually what happens more than the marathon 8 to 10 hour session, especially on Zoom. People are not doing that. So that was very reflective, very good. You were all so well prepared, so capable, so articulate. I can't say anything other than it was a pleasure to see you, and congratulations. And my comment on what happens in the real world, that we would be more focused in on the two very precise issues. So congratulations. Thank you. I'll hand it to my next judge.
Gary, my friend, please.
Okay, with pleasure. I want to repeat everything that, stress everything that, where did she go? Is Cheryl gone? Well, anyway, there she is. There she is. Don't go away. Don't go away. A couple of things I do want to stress again. This was just a beautiful mediation. Really, it was deftly handled. All of the input that I'm going to give, I know that all of us are going to give, we're not talking about huge changes that need to be made. If we're giving constructive criticism, it's just this fine-tuning thing. As you did come in, what was most important? Well prepared, and well prepared. And want to congratulate you all on this. I'm going to try to address very quickly something to everybody if I can. And just to start out with Faith, I want to talk to you about your use of language. It is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. You use metaphors. Your voice has a lilt to it, which makes one think you're reciting poetry instead of prose. You hit all the points along the way, and this is something which was really fantastic. You did check, 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 check. You got all the checks. And you got all of them, and you provided them with a fullness of vision as well. What I want to challenge you to do is to try to do all that with fewer words. Think about brevity in the delivery. There was a great United States Supreme Court justice who was quoted as saying, "Brevity is the soul of wit." And I think this is fantastic, and it's something very important. Make each word count. Not that they didn't, but consider the number of words you're using and the opportunity for the other participants to use words, and make sure that you're not dominating too much. Not that you were dominating, but a little bit of a lighter touch, I think you'll be even more effective. I love that up the mountain and down the mountain thing. That was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But again, on the chart, can you pare down the number of words so that people can associate the rise with 1 or 2 words, the summit, and then the decline with 1 or 2 words? You did a magnificent job. It's fantastic. Well done. Jessica and Andra, and putting the right people together. I want to talk to you about your openings. They were fantastic. First of all, I want to ask you, in every round you do counselor before client when you're working together, or is this, Well, you chose well. You chose very well, and I think that in many ways that set the tone for the for the session. In that, Jessica, you said, "Look, this is what we have to do. It's not a lot. I don't want to get bogged down in the legalities of this. We did a good job at not getting bogged down in the legalities in the past. Let's not get bogged down in them this time." And of course, that opened the door for Andra to just to have a much more open and elaborative presentation. I started with high expectations, trust broken. Now you, David, have listened and you have addressed our concerns at every stop of the way. Today is different. This can be a new day for both companies, how to operate successfully and independently. I thought you nailed it. You absolutely crushed it. And that started out the process in a very, very, very productive, very positive way. Let's see, there's one other point and then later on in the course of the mediation, Jessica, you went back. You went back and said, our intention has always been to go independently. That's why we offered. That's why we had the whole question of tech transfer. And this is important, stringing things together, taking ideas that were introduced earlier and bringing them back. Very, very well done. David and Camila. I've got to tell you, this is really difficult. Obviously, we're meeting for the first time, but each time that the screen is reconfigured from a caucus, from before the judges conference and after, the screen is reconfigured. So I'm looking for Camilla there, and she's in fact there, and okay, so. But anyway, that being said, some great teamwork as well. I think that you were very adept in the way that you worked with one another. I thought from the beginning, Camila, you were very clear, again, as you needed to be, codependence of issues. And this is what we know, what we need to know, the three aspects: how much, how, and when. How many times did you say that? How much, how, and when? The message was very, very clear. Now, I think that there was some question of absorption and reaction to the question that that we could consider. But I think you were giving the question clearly. And David, and before I get lost in another thing, I want to say, David, in general, I really liked your delivery. Of all the people around the table, you were the person who stood out as a human being, as an individual with a stake in what was going on. Somebody who wasn't giving a speech, but not that the others weren't. Again, we're talking about subtleties here, but as somebody who cared, who was thinking about it, who wanted to give every opportunity to the other side to come to an agreement together with you. And from the beginning, you said, you gave this, what became a hint. How can I go back to my board of directors and tell them that I don't have the how much, the how and the when? And that was a very adept signal, I thought, that you gave to the other side. Look, I'm getting pressure from my board of directors. I have all these plans. I can convince them on 1,000 other things that we can do in order to enhance. There was this word that kept coming on, enhance. But you got to give me this, because I'm going to be able to do nothing unless I have this money thing. But then you did something which was very unfortunate. You gave away your bottom line. You said that we can't go back with less than 400. I can't go back with under 400. It's just not feasible. And at that point, your bottom line was pegged, the money negotiation in terms of amount was essentially over. You should have fought a little bit and resisted. You should have been coy about the bottom line, and never get close to it, if at all possible. Talk up, talk up, talk up. Okay, I would love to go on, but I can't. I'm not going to. Congratulations to you all. This is a great final, a great final. Jair, I think you're up next.
Well, yes, it's difficult after, Cheryl and you, because you did great giving feedback to our friends, but I'll try my best, right? So first of all, I couldn't go on without congratulating Alan Waxman, Elena Erickson, Chris Silva, Kai Sachs, Anschild, publicly, Amanda Rodriguez, and so many others that had helped to put up this together. In dire straight times like we are going through now, this is an act of faith. This is an act of courage. This had somehow CPR is rescuing us from this deep setting in which we are so worried about, unpleasant things and unfortunately real things, and they are just building bridges, right? We are for a day or two or for a week just thinking about peacemaking, and this is invaluable. I think that we hardly can repay CPR for that. So thanks, my dear friends. This is what we need right now. So competitors, you should be really proud of yourselves. There's only one winner. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter, and it really doesn't matter. And who's telling you this is a person that had been around for a while. Not that age means wisdom, but at least experience. It is not about winning the title, winning the prize and everything. You should be proud of you. Your loved ones should be proud of you. Your professors, your universities. Everyone, your coaches. Right, so you are doing great, and winning and losing sometimes is so circumstantial. Sometimes it depends on just little things that you are great, each one of you, my friends. And I'm not saying this out of just courtesy or whatever. It impressed me a lot, and I'm happy to be here using my time to witness this wonderful contest and competition. So congratulations to you all. Congratulations, Alexandre and Roberto and the team of drafters. You came up with a wonderful case. It's not easy, it's difficult. You had to pay attention to each single detail, and you were, very precise, accurate, and congratulations, Alexandre. The drafters are somehow the heart of this competition, and you did great. Well, I've been litigating. I'm not this, nice person that you may believe that I am. I'm doing a lot of effort. I've been litigating for 35 years, more or less, and and I've been arbitrating too, and so on and so forth. And the thing that really amazes me and surprises me about mediation is that it is an inner process within itself. There's the mediation process, and there are many other layered processes within it, in it, that changes each one of this process. You might believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Regardless if you believe this or not, nobody gets in and out of the mediation process, either a moot or a real one, the same way. It changes ourselves. It changes our minds. Why? I don't know. I don't know why this. I guess it has to do with the evolution of humanity. I think that we spent at least 300 years from the French Revolution to now crafting a different way of getting to agreements, and this involves, every single interested party in it. And you might not believe, again, it doesn't matter. I used to say that God is very little worried if we believe in him or not. The important thing is if God believes in us, right? And that's more or less what happens with mediation. I think that it doesn't matter if you believe that it will change you or not, it does, right? And why does it do that with us? Because it doesn't matter if it's a mood or if it's a real live actual case. There's a here and now in the mediation process, right? Someone once said that humans are animals, are primates that tell stories and play roles, right? And that's exactly what it is, right? So in mediation, we tell stories. And the only thing is that, believe it or not, believe that it will change it or not, let it work on you, right? Let it work on you. And because what I've seen today was a new story being built, a new narrative being built from the scratch after the roles that were assigned to yourself. Right. So if we took an X-ray, right, an MRI picture or whatever of this mediation, what would you see? I think that you would see, and that's what happens in any mediation, people shifting from opposing ends, right? It's a kind of journey, right? You go from the story, and if it doesn't suffice the interest of your opponent, you go to the explanation, which is a story somehow differently told. It's more rational. It has more cognitive elements. The story might satisfy you, but the explanation might give David exactly what he wants to get to his board, right? You go from the big picture sometimes to the specifics, from the forest to the tree, from a cognitive process to an emotional process, right? But most of all, it goes from a performing paranoia that all students, all participants have, because this was instilled in you by your coaches, and I've been a coach also, right? Again, I'm sorry to tell you that. There is this performance paranoia that you should translate in a liveness paranoia. In other words, let the process, let the the multi-layered processes that are within the mediation process drag you along this flow. Because it is when you are not performing that the best of you comes out. That's what I would like to tell you, right? So now I would go specifically to, each one of the participants. First of all, the mediator, Miss Faith Challen, you were great, you were wonderful. It was thrilling to watch you doing your role here. I loved your naturality. Your face language is great. You looked all the time at each and every one of the participants. Your attitude is amazing. You're humble when you need to be. You are extremely cooperative, but you are very firm when circumstances call for it. Right? It was amazing the firmness that you applied when it came the time to call the caucus, and you did it in a very opportune moment. If you hadn't act like that at that specific moment, maybe things have gone south from that, right? So you're a natural mediator, right? And using your slides, using your metaphors, just appeal to the emotional side. So you disperse, whenever you give people other things to think, you disperse the tension, you ease the pressure, right? And that's why people began to act naturally from that moment on, right? You do your best when you just break free from the rehearsed script, right? So please be yourself, but it's easy, right? There's nothing wrong. You're perfect, you're natural. Go on, shine, and congratulations on your on winning this competition as a mediator, right? Andra, I loved your face language. You're very good. You began to use the you and me language, right? You addressed David from the first time, and people began mirrored you afterwards, right? So it's amazing how much you have been growing. I've seen your session yesterday, and you are a different person now. Right? You're better. You're much better, and that's who you are. You are even better than that. The only problem is that we don't know that. Okay, so you have a strong presence, but be aware. You said, "I want you, David," whereas you could say, "We need David to have you doing this or that." Use caveats, safeguards, open end your strong requests sometimes. Use your strong presence with wisdom and discretion. Balance it. Watch for cultural differences, but great, wonderful. Jessica, I would love to have you or Camila by my side if I were a party in this case, right? You were great lawyers, and your role was not easy to stick to, right? Because teamwork sometimes asks you to go and try to help, I mean, the party when it's needed and so on. So great teamwork, Jessica. You're a natural lawyer, and someone's got to be at the back front ready to tactically shoot if case be. And you did that several times. You had a great dynamic over the whole thing, right? Break free of the safety net. You don't need to read anything. And if it's a case of reading something, just say, "Oh, I'll read this right now." And as soon as possible, we just break free of and try to express yourself, right? Don't trade the mootness, right, by the liveness of the process. Go, just surf it, right? Surf the swell. Go on with that. David, I love the way you use positive language from the beginning. Your storytelling skills are wonderful. Your imagine if, right? So, and you stick to this role, which was not easy to play, but it was in order because of the previous story of the case, right? Your face language is wonderful. Just try to use a camera that takes your picture from here and not from here, because then you have to do like this and you lose something when you do that, right? You're very credible, right? Like a loyal party, and you did great. Even your stubbornness helped a lot. It worked very well, and Camila, you helped him a lot, right? I love the way you covered for David when it was needed, not because he was not being good enough, but because the dynamic of the process called for that, right? So it's vital for us. You use this. You're very versatile too. You're great. Pay attention to your background, right? Online mediation, it's a whole different process, and it's good to have nothing, not like I do here, right? But I'm just a judge, you know, and that's it. So my dear friends, congratulations. I loved to be here with you. Thanks for teaching me so much, right? And best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Jair. It was wonderful to hear all the judges giving feedback, value feedback. I will try to do mine in a very short way because I want not to repeat what have been said. And I will start it with our mediator. Faith, what a great name, Faith. Faith in the proceedings, faith in the mediator. You brought that to the table. Congratulations. Your analogy about the GPS was one of the best I ever heard. The mediator as a GPS. And you complemented that so well because you bring the mediation map to the table with one slide you brought with the mountain to climb together and to climb together against the problem. So you address it so well. I'm congratulating you because it's wonderful. You were calm, you were clear, your pace was good. You are a true facilitator. You have amazing communication skills. Only to move forward, because I believe that feedback is not something that you do to diminish the others, but to move forward, because you need to raise the bar. You call the caucus in the right way. You were the only one that could call the caucus at that time, because if any party would call the caucus so early, they would be weakened because they were still exploring. So you had some doubts, and you called the caucus and said, "I want a caucus with resistance." You not explained why, and the party didn't ask you why resistance first, but you called it and then you go to the room and say, "Talk to me," because you said today, "Hold your horses. I'm with the agenda on my mind. I need to understand this agenda fully." And you allow the parties to reflect about the agenda. I avoid the conflict so early. Your case in the beginning, if I could title the case, would be for Skynet, show me the money. For resistance, show me the drones, and let's talk about competition. This will be the brief of the case in this round, final round. You call the caucus. You did everything fine. To be excellent, I guess, when you call the caucus, just remember the parts about the second layer of confidentiality. So I'm here, I need to know, but you need to show me in the end what I can tell to the other side or not. Do that when you open the private session, and when you end the private session, you verify that. That's a tip. And another thing is, if you call the first caucus with resistance, give some homework to Skynet, because otherwise Skynet will be what they are talking. So prepare them to the time they will have during the caucus with the other team, okay? With that being said, again, I have full faith on you. Let's move to Dave and Camila. Skynet, David. The one phrase that defines you in this round is, let's take the last step together. You heard that from the other side. They want to come a step back to move a lot further, and say, let's do that last step together. Your opening was very positive. We climbed so many obstacles, you said. I'm seeking for your assistance. So I think your opening is terrific. You were proved very collaborative during the whole section. You focused on the common ground. You preserved the Skynet perspective, and you put in the table very early. My main concern is payment. You heard that their concerns about competition, but you bring payment and the financial needs and time constraints. You did a wonderful job with Camila, because Camila stepped in to show the legal perspective, to safeguard you, and she did. He was putting the case in. I want a solution that's realistic, enforceable, and feasible. And you follow what you talked. So I think you gain trust with that. I also say thank you, Camila, because your team anchored the date, June 2021, as a delivery date for the drones, and I guess it's part of your good job on this very round, the deadline. And you also posed vital questions: how and when we are going to be paid. You in my opinion, Dave blew, and you punched a little in the position we want to receive the payment. It's a bad guy, good guy routine, well played by the two of us in an exact manner. With that being said, I move to Queen Mary. Andra and Jessica, I'm here with the pleasure to have you for the second time. I agree with Jair. I see evolution. Andra, move one step back to be able to move many others ahead or forward. Great opening. You set the pace because you said confidence is broken, although then you made a room for Dave to be with you. You focus on the tech transfer agreement. You show the independence issue very early, and you're trying to make solutions benefit to both companies by marking that, okay, if we stay independent players. So I think you're looking for that. You move, you showed your interest very, very early. And you were eager to do the proposal. It takes a lot to you because you were ready to do the proposal, but you waited calm, patiently, and prepared your proposal. And when you made your proposal, you may then consider about figures. Then I think Jessica came out and do a very good assistance. In the beginning, I think Verico was like a ring announcer. He shows the space and the lights for you to come, Andra. Then she took places and enter in a very good specifics, like payment details. It's key to complete the package proposal. It's not can be a proposal that's only address payment and not address other concerns that are on the resistance side. And I say that Jessica anchored the 400 millions because you hear that I cannot go to the table with less than, and you anchored 400 million. That's great. With that being said, it was a pleasure to see you all. It was a great lesson, a great final. I make you now part of CPR history in this competition, and I wish you all the best for your lives. I'm really sure that I'm ahead of great competitors. So again, CPR is make me thinking about how I am going to retire, because the world is becoming more fierce for me now, both as a lawyer and as a mediator. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you all for the feedback. It was really good.
Thank you.
Sincere thank you to you all. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, also from me, thank you to the judges for your excellent feedback. We had, unfortunately, Shalogowski had to leave early, and or not so much early, but before the ending of the feedback session. I would invite all the speakers from the problem team to join us. I would ask the participants for this round, feel free to turn off your video. Feel free to stay in the room as we're making the ceremony and the announcements for the winners right after this session. So feel free to stay on here, just turn off your video. And same goes to the judges. Thank you. And now I'm inviting my colleague Laura, who's a co-chair of the competition and who helped me plan this whole event, to introduce the problem team and discuss with them their thoughts.
Thank you, Kai. Let me begin by congratulating all teams for reaching this stage of the competition and for engaging so well with the problem, which we know it was a very challenging problem, very interesting. And congratulations to Queen Mary University, University of São Paulo, and Africa Nazarene for the great final mediation session, for overcoming the mountain, right, that Faith very well pointed out, and for reaching an agreement. I'm very pleased to have here with me today Beatriz Rosa, Tom Valenti, Alexandre Simões, and Roberto Custer, who are all members of the problem committee. And let me thank you all once again for putting such an interesting and challenging problem, and for drafting the confidential informations, for engaging with this idea. And we have Alexandre with the very cool background showing the drones. I think this session is going to be a very interesting opportunity for all the students to really engage with the problem committee and to ask any questions that you might have on the problem. We want the session to be as interactive as possible, so I'm going to keep an eye out on the YouTube chat. So whenever you have questions, any questions are welcome. I'm going to be posing those questions to our speakers, and please, so feel free to interact with us at any point. I think it will be interesting to start this conversation by asking the problem committee about how their drafting process was. We know that this problem was originally made for the competition that was going to take place in person in São Paulo last year. So I think it would be great for students to know a little bit about how the process was, how was the discussion of the ideas that you guys had for the problem, how the confidentials were prepared, what was the rationale behind the confidentials. Camila, in the session, when we were waiting for the judges' feedback, pointed out that the confidentials actually evolved from more general confidentials to more specific ones, where the parties had more specific interests and ideas to discuss. So I think it would be great if we can kick off the session by discussing a little bit this process.
I think I'll take the start. We have a team here, and I want to acknowledge two of our team that can't be here. So Catherine Davidson from Australia had a conflict this morning, and we also forgot that one of Roberto's colleagues, Luis Ricardo, was a team member too, and he can't be with us today. So we had two additional people besides those you're seeing. So I'll set the background a little bit, then you're going to hear more from them, and we really want to hear from everybody on the call too. So I'm going to take you back to September of 2019. That's when I think we had a request from CPR that came to me originally. That when I worked on the team before. Would I take the team this year and lead the team? And that's a big task, right? And so we never start a new team without somebody from the past team for experience, in my view. And so my request was to Alexandre, who had worked on the team before, because it's always good to have a historical background. I think Roberto and Luis had done work on Diego Falek's team before, so we came to this with some experience. And so we asked people, do they have the time and the ability to do this? And most importantly, the interest. And so we assembled the team that has been identified. And so what do we do next? We solicit ideas. We didn't come to this with a team. And I looked at some notes. We had ideas about the banana attack. We had figs. We had honeybees. We had a fungus. We had all kinds of different things. And of course, we had the East Republic problem. But the East Republic problem didn't come in as a drone problem originally. And it didn't come as a conflict between two companies. It came as a conflict between two countries, and a different kind of vehicle. I'll let my teammates talk more about that in a moment. But we got a little bit of feedback from CPR, and Kai was a successor to a gentleman named Olivier Andre, who has since moved on from CPR. And Olivier pointed out to us very rightly, CPR doesn't mediate between countries, they mediate between companies. Can you fine tune this a little bit to make it a commercial dispute? And so we accepted that feedback from CPR, and we began this process we had focused on the East Republic case, and we began to focus on turning that into a country, not a country dispute, but a company dispute. And so I would like to stop my comments at this point and you're going to listen to some really interesting stories from some of the originators. So at that point, I think Beatrice and Alexandre were talking to each other about something. So one of you take over and tell us what happened next. Beatrice?
Okay, in our first discussions about what kind of problems we would create, we imagined that we should present a problem with reality. And I think we got that. That would contain elements of real life in addition to the commercial relationship between two companies. Because contracts in a global world are always influenced by the environment which it is inserted. We thought of something that contained geopolitical issues, outside the interests of companies, and that spoke about current issues. Then each of us created a case and presented to the group to choose which would be more interesting. In the very beginning, I imagined a case that dealt with development of military equipment that always is related to transfer of technology. It was a bilateral agreement to develop a multi-purpose cargo aircraft. But the group concludes that we shouldn't talk about war. And from there, we evolved into drones and humanitarian issues, which were on the agenda at the time. And I'm going to show you, I have my own drones here. This is a little one, it's a toy that we can train how to control it. And this one is a more professional, my company we use, you see, there is a camera here. We use to film sites because we work with engineering, we are engineering experts, and we need sometimes to film what is happening in the field. And then I can pass to other colleague. I don't know if Beto or Alex want to tell, and after I'll come back with some information about the specification and so on.
That's great, Beatriz. I will pass the floor to Roberto because Roberto has a lot to tell that's very interesting to us. But Beatriz has mentioned, we started thinking about a cargo plane. We also think about helicopters, chopters, and we were in a stage because these military contracts are so huge, the time is of the essence. So we like this field. Beatriz has a lot of experience on that. But then Roberto put the egg in the right position. So I want to pass the floor to, with no further ado, to Roberto, because this experience will became what you saw due to the contribution to Roberto, Luis Ricardo, and Catherine also.
You are too kind, Alex. You are too kind. It was a great problem. And first of all, it's amazing to see you all negotiating and mediating the problem. As a problem drafter, I think it's the most happy I can be to see you all talking about Skynet and resistance and all the characters. Thank you, Alex. The idea was all from you guys, and first from Beatriz, and it's a pleasure to be on Tom Valenti's team, drafting team here today. We need to make the problem interesting and feasible to students. So that's when the egg appeared. So we could be talking about cargo planes, of course, but how can we put some great technology that students are eager to talk about and to discuss? And how can we put a little bit of Easter eggs as well inside the problem? So we made three great things to make the problem better to discuss. The first one was the drones. So instead of cargo planes, why not drones? They can do what we are planning to do, and it's a great problem for the future. The second one, as you all mentioned, from war to humanitarian aid. So it's a great topic. It's a trending, it's a hot topic. Why not put that as well on our great problem? And the last one was the characters. So I usually like to put some spices on the characters. So on 2018 problem, the mining ore, I put all the X-Men inside. So instead of iron ore, we had a dimension. And why not in this problem as well? We put something that's a little bit edgy of technology, and that was Terminator. So I was just a little kid when Terminator 2 got out, and Arnold Schwarzenegger did an amazing job creating an instant classic. So why don't we put Skynet and resistance? And 2019, it came out another Terminator movie. So I put some of the new characters and the old characters mixed out together, and the Mediator was nothing more than James Cameron. So J. Cameron is the director, and all the parties are the parties of Terminator 2 and Terminator 6 from the 2019 movie, including the councils. So those were the three topics that we wanted to provoke you guys to discuss and talk about. And again, it was amazing to be on this drafting team. I'm hoping for future collaboration.
Please, Tom, go ahead.
So now we have this problem, right? That is fully developed. But what do we need to do then? Do we need to write 6 sets of confidentials, right? And so we then, all of these meetings, of course, are on Zoom. We know that we need each round. We like in the CPR context to make it progress, as the participants have already made note in their comments after the final, how each round kind of progresses to the other. And so we have some brainstorming sessions as a team and try to figure out what kind of issues can we put in that are practical issues from round to round to round. What can they resolve or attempt to resolve? What gets resolved, and how do you move forward? So we brainstorm all these ideas, and then each team member takes one, right? And we try to put them into a sequence after they're drafted. And so we put these issues together. Once that's done, then we decide how do we sequence them. So we get these difficult problems coming along, then we decide the sequence. What can be resolved early? What can be resolved later? Which problems are maybe more suitable to a preliminary versus a final? And then it's kind of a voting process. We all work as a team. There was never any issue about what was first, second, third, or fourth. They all kind of organically came together. And then each party, each one of us who you see and those not on the call, draft our own set of confidentials. We get some feedback from the others, and we end up with the competition that problem set that we presented to CPR. They get some kind of final approval and final editing and drafting, things like that. But then what happened? COVID, right? And so all of that work as a problem writing team, at some point we thought it was going to happen, right? Everybody, we thought there was going to be an online version. Then all of a sudden they say, you're done, but we'll keep it for next year. And so we all forgot about it, right? And all of a sudden we come to now, and then we had to reconvene the team. And we had COVID, and everybody's working on COVID issues and things like that. We decided, how are we going to make this current? And we decided not to do too much with the rounds to make it too COVID oriented, because we're all quite tired of COVID. And we decided not to put too much COVID into any rounds. We gave you the reason for mediating on Zoom. And we decided to keep the problem mostly intact for your competition this year. And so that brings you to the current time. I don't want to share the document, but I have my notes from how we were going to create the confidentials and all that. But there's a bit of work that goes into this. But I think it would be interesting, Laura, if you have some other questions, or we've discussed the process and the work of the team, but maybe you have some questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Paulo. I think that's all very interesting. I want to go back to one of the points I think Beatrice was making about how we tie the problem with the real world, because I think this is something students are really interested on. So if you could tell us a little bit more about what were the inspirations for the problem in the real world, and specifically relating to the drones, regarding the specifications of the drones and how the technology works. Was this inspired by any real world examples or by any instructions or conversations we had with vendors? I know you have a lot of experience in the area, so I think it would be very interesting to hear from you.
Thank you, Laura. Thinking about the reality issue, we had to create a realistic technical specification with possible characteristics for the drone. So I researched a little about helicopter characteristics and based myself on the technical specification of the helicopter Scarel produced by the Brazilian Elibras, which is a subsidiary of the French Eurocopter. After creating the technical specification, I asked a friend, a colleague of an association of defense product manufacturers that I am director, to see if that specification made sense. This friend produces drones at a Brazilian company, BR Vent, and so I think we brought interesting information to the competitors' teams with real characteristics and feasible characteristics, and answering the question Faith made some minutes before at the end of the last session, this is not a real case, but it is really a case that it's possible to happen. So it's really something that I think was very interesting for the students, and really they dealt very well with it.
Sorry, I completely agree, Beatriz. I think that's very interesting that the amount of elements from the real world that we have in the problem, I think it's very interesting, and it makes students feel very engaged with the discussion. And I want to pick up on a little bit of this reality element, but moving from a more ADR and mediation perspective. I know we were all very experienced mediators and ADR practitioners. And in that sense, I think it will be interesting for students to hear a little bit more about your experience from previous mediation cases you had and how they tie up with the problem. So are there any elements from previous cases that you had either as a lawyer or as a mediator that have some resemblance with the dispute between Skynet and resistance? I know there are some long-term issues that the parties wanted to discuss. I know there are some more contractual elements that were part of the discussion as well. So I think it would be great if you can give us a little bit of insight on this.
He's gone. Check, see if he's out there. Yeah.
Well, I can address generally by saying the following. Each of us came with an experience. Beatriz, with a lot of contracts with the government, with a lot of contracts in the military. Roberto, with many conflicts being solved by the team he's part of. And so we have backstage experience from real cases. And I know that, Laura, you faced the one exactly the same. You need to check the jurisdiction of many countries due to the think that when a drone fly from one country to other, it's different air regulations. So we are facing that in Brazil also. So it's a current case. And I think as a problem writer, we write the problem, we write the confidentials, and we believe we own the problem. So we imagine that the students are going to follow our path, our trail. And what's amazing is that once the case is out, you are no longer the owner. The students do with the case what they want, and you discover things that you never thought about. So this is a good characteristic to be a case writer. I guess Tom, Roberto, and Beatriz, this will be a profession in the future to write cases for competitions. So I hope we have another thing to do quickly and shortly.
Yes, Alex, and for sure, all of us came with experiences we had before. This transfer of technology, in all my life, I had problems like that. Since my first job, it was transfer, at that time, it was transfer of technology between private companies, till now that I work with the same kind of problems, but between companies and governments. So our experience, our real life experience are brought into the
Thank you, Alexandria and Beatriz. I think that's very enlightening, and it's very cool for students, I think, to see how they are acting in a real problem, in a fact pattern that really reflects what they are going to encounter in real life, right? And in that sense, I wanted to build up on this point and understand a little bit about what do you think were the key issues and challenges that both Resistance and Skynet needed to overcome to reach a settlement in this case? So what were the real obstacles that were preventing the parties from, I don't know, negotiating perhaps a settlement in the first mediation session and after 2 sessions? If you could just build up a little bit about on this, I think it would be great.
I'll start. I think each round is a bit different, and so we make it so that we can't end the competition after a preliminary round. So there's lots of difficulties along the way, and what we try to do to keep your interest in the case is to make the challenges a little bit different in each. Sometimes it's a communication problem. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding. Is it a camera or is it a weapon? Are you with us or are you against us? Sometimes it's a communication trust issue. And so we try to give each team some challenges in each round. Never really a true ZOPA. In one round, we actually said you have no authority to do it. And then the mediator needs some challenges as well. And some of those was how to manage confidential information that was almost identical from each side, but maybe a non-disclosure agreement on each side that could have prevented some collaboration. And so the real challenge, I think, is to keep it interesting and different, because we know how much time is spent preparing, but we also know how limited the time is in between each round. So they can't be too complicated, but they can't be too simple either. And so that's the challenge of the drafting committee is to keep this interest in it and some element of surprise, because you have to have some enthusiasm as a participant 6 times if you make it all the way to the end. And so creating that enthusiasm, and I think the team did a great job. I really think that we tried our best. I really commend Beatrice for, to come up with real specs from people in the industry. The intent of us is to make it real, but we don't always have somebody like Beatrice who can use her business acumen and her clients to say, check my specs, really, let's make sure these are real. Because we know the students are going to check something somewhere, right? And so the reality component was there in this round. And I think I'd be curious to know, Laura, I don't know if you have access to a poll or whatever. Do any of the students have a drone themselves as the toy one that Beatrice showed us? Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's really, I have no doubt that the problem team did a great job in making everything, all the elements very engaging from the very start to the very end. And unfortunately, I don't have a poll to everyone who is in the YouTube channel, but I do have the members, the finalists here on the Zoom call. So if any of you has a drone and want to share your experience, your vision on this, that would be great. But I personally, I was very intrigued by the problem and by the inspirations, because as Beatrice and Alexandre mentioned, I had the opportunity of researching already from a legal perspective, situations in which drones were used in situations of conflicts and prolonged conflicts and humanitarian crisis to deliver medicines and food in zones of war. So it was very interesting to me to see such a real world problem and fact pattern. I think I have some questions here on the chat. I think the team from Queen Mary is saying that unfortunately they do not have a drone, but they are considering buying one after the competition. And I think the same applies for the OSP team. So I don't think they had any experience with drones before, but yeah, I think everyone is inspired by the fact pattern. I think as a final question and more general, just to gather your views on this, I think it will be very interesting to know what are your favorite elements of the problem and why. And in this sense, I just want to open the floor for any questions the students might have, either here on this Zoom call. I know we have some finalists here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat, or anyone who is watching us on YouTube. Yeah, I think Beatrice is encouraging everyone to buy drones, saying they are a good toy.
We have a 5% commission on sales in Brazil.
While you're waiting for questions,
But all mine, one was bought in China. This one little toy came from China, and the other one came from United States. So in Brazil, I don't know someone that manufactures that, only the military ones. These ones I know.
Yeah.
While you're waiting, we challenged Beatrice a couple of days ago when we were planning this session to have the drone live in her apartment, circling around.
But we thought it would be a bit dangerous, right? So I'm glad she didn't do
This one, it was possible to do it, but it was a job for my son, but he's not here now.
I don't know if any of the finalists here in the Zoom have any questions about the fact pattern or any point that we didn't cover in this discussion that you want to clarify with the panel committee. I think, yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question directly to our panelists as it's easier. Oh. I know Andrea was typing her questions, but.
Thank you, Laura. That's actually very helpful because I have 2 questions. No, actually 3 maybe. So the first one I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned you checked with the people from the industry in terms of specifications for the drones. Usually in mediations, how common is it for parties and counsel to focus on these details? Would you have perhaps expected us more to focus on those details, or is it rather they focus more on negotiations, payment, and then maybe have other sessions where they can discuss these specifications?
I guess that specs are just a background. We don't want you to go to check and to prove that you made research on that. It's just a background for you to flow with the negotiation. We want you, the teams negotiating and the mediator taking part on it, helping, assisting the parties.
Yes, that was our intention.
I think a twist on that is the reality was provided by the specs, but the imagination was supplied by Roberto. And so we had a mix of reality and unreality, which has really made the problem interesting. But I think we wouldn't expect anybody to have researched the data behind that.
Yes, and I think that the main important thing was to make the students thinking all the time in new problems, new things, new solutions, and it was very important to make the first sections to be there and go forward in the new solutions, new negotiations. I think this was very important for us to maintain really the people looking forward.
Yes, I will second that. And you should only study it to get the commercial realism out of the problem. So don't need to dwell. A little example, in the case, you received the T1000 Max drone, but we addressed that it couldn't take off with more than 500 kilograms. So it's probable that the T1000 was actually with the T800 specs. So that's an example. So you should like make some comparisons of why it's not gaining the altitude and the weight of the T1000, but it's more actually like the T800. So only to gain a little bit of commercial realism and to discuss the issues, but do not dwell on this specificities, I guess.
Thank you, everyone. That's very helpful. And my last question, I was just curious whether, as drafters of the question, is there any argument perhaps or idea or solution that you were thinking when you're drafting the question, but you didn't see in the competition?
Anybody?
Well, there were rounds that we draw a ZOPA, and our intention was to see how you manage to negotiate it between the extreme points of such a ZOPA. the zone of possible agreement. So we gave elements for one side, we balanced to give this the same amount of elements to the other side and see how they perform in negotiation skills. There were other rounds, as Tom said, you don't have the authority to settle, so it's a challenge to the mediator. So we try to make all the rounds, you go up in the story, and we try to do in a way that you warm up in the first round, then you gain confidence, and then you go for the next round with a certain level of authority and new challenges. We don't know if we gain that, but there is a secret. We changed the positions of some rounds because we believe that to have the debate about big numbers in the final would be the climax that we could set. So the final, we left the problem of deliverance against payment, and you nailed it. You were in that round.
I could comment about well, Beatrice, go ahead.
And that was the main problem, because if you discuss these 2 points before, the case would be end.
Yeah. I could discuss the quarterfinal about a possible issue. So in the quarterfinal round, which remember is the semifinal for the mediator, in that problem, each side had confidential information that they were negotiating or getting assistance from a gentleman named Olivier Andre. But that was subject to an NDA. Neither party in the round that I was involved with, neither side mentioned the name, only one mentioned Olivier Andre. So if both had mentioned Olivier Andre, the mediator would have been confronted with a problem. There's a trust issue, but each side has hired an independent consultant who happens to be the same person. So if the mediator got this through caucuses, well, you're working with Olivier, but I can't tell the other side. You're working with Olivier, but I can't tell the other side. The mediator would know I could somehow have their trust built if they disclosed that. And so he or she might have at that point decided, what's stopping you from doing that? Would it be possible before tomorrow to get permission to disclose the names? Because maybe that would help you rebuild this trust. And so we didn't have the disclosure. So that was an interesting predicament to challenge a mediator in a semifinal to see if they could have thought of some way to work around the NDA that would have been to the mutual interest of both parties. But those nuances are the outside possibilities to distinguish better from best, right? And not necessarily for everybody to see the purpose of.
Thank you very much, Shaw. I think what Tom was explaining about how each confidential is in and of itself almost a problem, right? A separate problem is very interesting. And I think that's how we managed to have such a great sessions as well throughout the competition. And thanks again, Andrea, for your questions. I don't know if you have any follow-ups or you wanna.
No, thank you. Just wanted to thank everyone. That was very helpful. And thank you for mentioning the solution, because we had obviously a different quarterfinal. So it's great to hear another way how we could have dealt with it.
I would like to mention that CPR drafted the competition in a way that you make many sessions with the same problem, the very same problem. And this is unique because you can have many sessions and evolve on them. And you can also say with the confidentials if we bring things from the previous sessions or not, or only the numbers of sessions. So it's a challenge because you have a team creating problems and you need to connect them in a way, in a logical way that makes sense. I hope that you, all the teams, the coaches, have enjoyed the problem, because we have enjoyed so much to be on this team that if you are glad, we are glad too, because it was a wonderful experience.
I just want to confirm, Alexandre, that I think everyone agrees that this goal was fulfilled. I'm getting a few comments here on the YouTube chat. Alan is thanking everyone for the very thoughtful approach in developing such a stimulating case study. And we also had a comment from Mariana Rezende, who wanted to say that the Terminator reference was amazing. And I think Roberto can build up on this. And yeah, I think that was really interesting. I don't know if any of the students have noticed this before, But I think those are the sort of details and spices, as Roberto put, that really made the problem really interesting for everyone. So I just want to confirm if anyone here in the Zoom call, the finalists, or anyone on the chat has any further questions to our panelists, because I think we are approaching the time for the award ceremony already. So yeah, exciting times. If we don't have any further questions from the USP team here or the Mediator Faith, who I think is also on the Zoom call, I think Jessica also wants to thank everyone for the fantastic problem. I think we are receiving a lot of positive feedback about the problem. But it seems that we don't have any further questions. So I just want to open the floor for the problem committee again to say any concluding remarks, and then we can move forward, I think. And I can give the word to Kai to launch and kick off the award ceremony.
Anybody? Beatrice, you want to fly that drone as we sign off?
Yeah. The big one.
The big one, yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. Okay, with the camera here.
I think I'll just say on behalf of the whole committee and Catherine and Luis, who are not here, thank you all for the preparation, the attention to the detail. We spend a lot of time, and you heard from us. It's very, very rewarding to be able to see the problem in action as judges and to hear your comments about it. So there's a mutual appreciation that we have of all of you as well. So thank you very much.
Don, I hope that the students want to be coach in the next competition, wants to be organizers in the next competition, and one day they can be problem writer, write the problems also, because we need that. So we are stimulating everybody to jump in. If you have a good idea, if you have a good case, just make your team and submit it to CPR. It will be a pleasure to hear new challenges and new problems.
The young people are important to us, and I'll make a confession as I close, is that I never saw a Terminator movie. So Roberto, when he came up with these ideas, I was just very quiet, and I thought it was brilliant, but I couldn't say a word about the names Cameron, and I knew the name James Cameron just because I'm not stupid, but I didn't know all these other names. So the vitality that the younger members bring. So we encourage all of you participants to stay with us and join us, and we welcome participation by all of you.
My last words, Tom, is hasta la vista, baby. So it's the final sentence of Terminator. It was a pleasure to work with you guys. Hasta la vista.
And actually, we had a comment in the YouTube chat along those lines as well. Ellen says, in the words of the Terminator, we will be back next year. So I think with that, we can end the session. Thank you all for participating. I think it was very inspiring and very amazing for everyone who participated to listen to you all. It was an amazing problem. We keep receiving great feedback that this was a stellar team of drafters, and I can only second that, and thank you all for everything. Over to you, Kai.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you to the problem team. Yeah, this concludes the final round and our problem team discussion. With that, we are just left with the award ceremony. But before I start with announcing the winners in our different categories, I just wanted to take this time one last time to thank everyone. First of all, our problem team. We got Tom Valenti, Catherine Davidson, who wasn't able to join because she is located in Australia, Roberto Custa, Luis Ricardo, Beatriz Rosa, and Alexandre Simresh. They've done a fantastic job, as you could just hear from this talk. It was just great to see the insights that they had, the ideas they brought forward, and also seeing the creativity with which they showed by adding all these other ideas. The banana problem, I would have liked to see all of these, but I think we can see if we use any of these for the next year. Then I also wanted to thank our co-chairs and hosts. Our co-chairs consists of Claire Connellan, Cesar Rossi Machado, Laura Franca Pereira, who you just heard speak with talk to the problem team, and Tabata Silva Rodriguez. Thank you all for all of your support. And this was really a lot of planning in the last year, and then again a lot of planning for this year. And we're happy that we finally managed to put this all together. Additionally, I wanted to thank our hosts, Amanda Rodriguez, who is here in the finals, managed to host this session effortlessly and without any problems, as she did with all the other rounds. Our other hosts included Bruno Maranhão Fabrizio, Israel Cuoto, Ingrid Maximo, and Julia Spalletta, who are all hosting different sessions during the general rounds and the quarterfinals. Then I also want to thank our sponsors for this event, which are the UC Gould School of Law, Ragazzo Simões Lazzareschi e Montoro Advogados, Demarest Advogados, the law firm of Three Crowns, and the organization Arbitral Women, who helped us put together both this competition as well as a scholarship for the team of Africa Nazarene University. And lastly, I want to thank our judges, not just the ones that sat in here today, but also our over 45 international judges that judged several sessions over the course of the week, who are all very experienced practitioners and who all put aside a decent amount of time to prepare for their sessions and to sit in these sessions all on their own, and taking away their precious time to educate everyone on these issues. They also were giving extended feedback, oftentimes more than an hour long, even though our initial request was only to have a 20-minute feedback session. But with the Zoom features, it is probably easier for a lot of us to add another 30 minutes to this when you really enjoy the judging process and you really enjoy communicating and interacting with all of you students. So this whole process, we're just done with the thanking part. With this, I want to start announcing our award ceremony, and I want to preface that with saying all of our teams have done amazing jobs. They really showed a level of professionalism that is unprecedented, I would say, and is just amazing to see how effective ADR is and how talented you all are in putting together written statements, negotiating, mediating, and working together on a problem that was very complex and very interesting. So our first award goes to the best client. The best client being the best client in the general rounds, who performed the highest in those rounds. And the award goes to FGV Sao Paulo, Brazil, and the client being Marina Dowd. So congratulations, Marina. I am not sure if you're in the chat, but we will make sure to let you know and let everyone else know during another additional email that I will send out to all participants. Congratulations, Marina, again. Then the next one, we have the best counsel in the general rounds. The representative here, the winner is the Queen Mary University of London, United Kingdom, And the winner is Jessica Splendorio, who is right here. Jessica, do you want to say something?
I just want to say thank you so much. And it was sincerely a pleasure working with all the teams and meeting everybody. And thank you, Kai, and to everybody else for their wonderful feedback. It's definitely an honor.
Congratulations, Jessica. Then the next category that we have is the best overall teamwork of a team. And here we are pleased to have them on here again. It is the University of Sao Paulo. University of Sao Paulo, do you want to join for a second?
Of course. Thank you very much. We're so happy to have this award, and we would like to thank all of our colleagues, our coaches, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I see that Mariana has joined us. Where? Oh, so yeah, it's very nice to be in the team with David, Mariana, and Julia. So we're really grateful for that.
Okay. Mariana, Julia, do you want to say something too? Because the award doesn't only go to David and Camila, but to the whole team, as you were also in the other categories. And
well, yes, I'm just so proud and thankful for this journey. It has been amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just like to thank as well everyone. It was really nice competition, and I really enjoyed doing it. Thank you.
Thank you all for your kind words, and congratulations again. Our next category is the best written statement. That was the written statement that every team sent in prior to the competition, and that was a factor in determining who made it to the quarterfinals. And the best written statement is the team from Federal University of Paraná. Congratulations to the Federal University of Paraná. They have done an excellent written statement, and our judges were very impressed, gave the highest grades to this written statement. So now we're going to the category of the best mediator, and without saying too much, some of you might have already realized who the winner is going to be, but I will start with the third place, which is the American University Washington College of Law, United States, and the winner is Jared Green. Congratulations, Jared. It was a great session. I was able to sit in, and it was really a stellar performance too. The second place is the PUC Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and the winner is Felipe Glioche, who I also had the chance of seeing yesterday. It was also an amazing performance, just to be beaten by our winner of this competition. And I think everybody could see today how amazing the winner was, and I can only say Felipe was just as good, and it's sad that only one person can win this. So the winner of the category of the best mediator goes to the African Nazarene University in Nairobi, Kenya, and the winner is Chilangat Faith. Congratulations, Faith.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And just letting everybody know, so the way that the competition was set up is that the semifinals had two rounds and two mediators in there. So Faith won during the semifinals. She had the highest score there, and this round was kind of her extra lap that she was doing for us, and it was a stellar performance this round. Again, I saw the scores that the judges gave for you two, and they were just as good as every other round. So congratulations to you for this award. Now we come to the final category of the best negotiator team. And again, I'm gonna start with the third place. The third place goes to FGV Rio de Janeiro. Congratulations, everyone, FGV Rio. That was also a great performance. They were competing against University of Sao Paulo, and Sao Paulo made it by an extremely thin margin in the semifinals, and Rio was almost, if not as good as the team of University of Sao Paulo, and it made the competition like really tough. So the second place goes to the University of Sao Paulo. Congratulations. We see you still in here. Wanna come up again?
Thank you very much. It's again a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. And congratulations to the first place as well.
Yes, congratulations, Andrea and Jessica. You did really well. It was such a pleasure doing the session with you.
Yes, it was so deserved, and we are so happy to have come this far.
Yeah, congratulations again. And I can only tell you, I saw the scores, and it was again an extremely tight race between the two teams. But without further ado, I go to the first place of this competition in the negotiator category. Goes to the Queen Mary University of London in the United Kingdom. Congratulations, you two.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure doing this round with all of you guys. We really enjoyed meeting you and learned so much. So thank you again for everybody, and sincere congratulations to everybody for a great competition. And thank you, Kai, so much for the organization and everything you've done for us today.
Thank you so much for everything, not only for today, but all the 6 rounds that we've done so far, and the feedback, and for the organization. It has been an honor and a pleasure to take part. And thank you, Camila and David, for the session today.
Thank you. I saw that we still have a lot of our judges in here. Does anyone want to chime in and congratulating our winners here?
Hello, Andrea. Hello, Jessica. I think Jair mentioned an evolution. So I think it's have paid off. Congratulations on behalf of all the judges. Tom is here also. I had the pleasure to sit with you twice during the competition. You did a wonderful job, and I'm sure that you are going to be happy for a long time, enjoy your prize. And now the bar is even higher, because when everybody sees you, they will see, they are the champions. So you are now a target. Everybody wants to beat you in another competition. Go ahead with that. Dream with that. That's my words in an ironic but serious way. Congratulations.
I think, Alan, I don't know if everyone knows your status, the president of CPR.
No, thank you. Please go ahead, Tom. I'm gonna back cleanup this time.
Okay, good. No, I just wanted to congratulate everybody. I've judged a lot of rounds, and I have to agree with Kai. Very close all the way along. And Alessandra says it well. You set the bar quite high, and I'm glad to see your success, and hope to see you in other competitions and your school back at CPR next year when we can all be together. So congratulations, and congratulations to everybody else who made it this far.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in here. I don't want to leapfrog anybody. All right, well, let me just say, first of all, congratulations to everybody. And I do mean everybody, from the folks who helped pull this together. I was just part of the discussion on the problem, and just all of the hosts, all of the people who were observers and coaches, as well as, of course, the participants. You were all remarkable. And, you know, these things often turn on very slight differences. Today, one team could win, tomorrow another team could win. But the level of competition here is what made this so tremendous and so inspiring, to be frank. This is, as the president and CEO of CPR, my first international mediation competition. Last year would have been my first international mediation competition, but here we are this year. And I had heard such great things about the experience, and I now know why. And really, I think it is because as we sit here and watch all of the investment and work you did in pulling together your preparations, your strategies, your execution, it is really just so inspiring for us all to see how we really can engage in difficult issues and find ways for resolution. And that is, of course, what we are about at CPR, and looking at you as the next leaders. I hope you will join us. Join our community, our young leaders group called Y-ADR. I hope you'll all become members of that and participate with us. And I will look forward to learning more from you and learning more about you, as I have no doubt all of you in this competition will go on to do very impressive things and really help many people find their ways through difficult problems towards resolution. That is such a lofty aim, but one you're going to help make so many a reality for. So thank you all again. I want to thank my colleague Kai, who did a just tremendous job at pulling together the coordination of this. I was joking with him. In the States, we have here what we call March Madness with basketball games. This is our version of March Madness in the mediation world. And all of you, thank you. Bravo, bravo. That's right, Alexander, March Mediation Madness.
Okay, I think this concludes our competition now. Thank you all for joining in. I have just one last comment. We are having a little networking session for our contestants. I sent out the email to all of our previous teams who competed in this competition, as well as all of our judges. So for anyone watching, please check your email. You're invited to join this call and mingle a little bit with our winners and in all the categories, and chime in the celebrations of this competition this time. And with that, I will end the live part of this section, and we are hoping you can all join us in congratulating the competitors. Thank you.